Chapter 1452. Although the wisp of Heaven Destroyer soared, God's consciousness was also resting. The pressure he exerted on Su Yun did not weaken at all. This was the place where the Heaven Destroyer sword god died. He knew that his wisp of consciousness would not be able to hold on for long, and would die sooner or later, so he treated this place as his grave, and no one could disturb him. And now, he wanted to clear Su Yun out, or kill him. Therefore, the terrifying power of creation began to pressure Su Yun. The power of creation was different from the divine power. It was almost equivalent to the power of primal chaos, and contained the endless power of nature. Metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were all included within it. It could transform into the power of creation, wood that was filled with life force. It could also transform into the sharp and terrifying power of creation metal that could cut through everything. And there was also the terrifying power of creation earth that could defend against enemies. The power of creation could be used to refine pills, and the power of creation and what could be used to refine flesh and bones. The power of creation was boundless and contained countless principles of the great Tao, like a huge disk that covered tens of thousands of small disks. And to understand this power, it was not something that could be completed in a short period of time. The tremors outside lessened a little, but the breath of the Heaven Destroyer's sword did not weaken in the slightest. After fighting with this sword for nearly a month, those masters were at their wits' end and were extremely angry. Someone suggested to let others hold off the Heaven Destroyer's sword and let one or two people go in first. However, the choice of these two people became the cause of their quarrel. Everyone hoped that it would be their own people who went in, so they were in a deadlock for a long time. Su Yun was ready to leave with the teleportation token, but right now, he still hoped that he could stay in the secret room for a while longer. 2 days passed quickly, and Su Yun, who had been suppressed by the power of creation, had not recovered to his best state, but the Heaven Destroyer Sword God was already impatient, and another round of terrifying chi field came pressing down. At this moment, the secret room was filled with lightning. The destructive aura was like water, drowning the place, but it was unable to overflow out of the door. The inside and outside the door were like two different worlds. Su Yun used all of his divine power and clenched his teeth to persevere, but the power of creation was extremely fierce. If he relaxed even a little, it would directly destroy his body without any hesitation. "Give up, Ant. Get out of here. Otherwise, you will be buried here with me." The Heaven Destroyer, Sword God, roared. But Su Yun did not move at all and continued to resist. Reckless fool. The Heaven Destroyer's Sword God became angrier and angrier. When the power of creation was almost exhausted, he stopped and continued to recover. He clearly knew that there was still a group of people eyeing him covetously outside, so he did not dare to completely use up the power of creation. However, while recovering his strength, he continued to harass Su Yun, causing Su Yun to recover his divine power very slowly. If this continued, he would naturally have the advantage, and he believed that after a few more rounds, Su Yun would definitely be unable to resist his power of creation due to his lack of strength. At that time, if Su Yun did not leave, he would only be devoured. "Die here." The Heaven Destroyer Sword God opened his eyes and looked at Su Yun, who was seated cross-legged. At the moment, his hair was disheveled, and he was in an extremely sorry state. The magic treasure on his body could not withstand the impact of the power of creation and became tattered. In this kind of long-term head-on confrontation, ordinary immortal equipment were no longer of any use. The only thing that could truly contend against it was his own strength and willpower. This time, you won't be able to hold on any longer. The Heaven Destroyer Sword God thought coldly. He could feel that Su Yun's chi was being disturbed by him, and was barely holding on, while his own power of creation had mostly recovered, although the amount of power of creation stored in a strand of consciousness soul was less than 1% of the amount stored in a complete body. But to deal with such a guy, it was enough. Dong! At this moment, an extremely terrifying explosion suddenly came from outside, followed by the entire ground shaking. Su Yun opened his eyes and slowly stood up. Outside, there seemed to be a very terrifying existence. Looks like I won't be able to stay calm here today. The Heaven Destroyer Sword God looked at Su Yun coldly and said, "However, no matter who comes, they will all die here. I, the Heaven Destroyer Sword God, even if I only have a strand of consciousness left, will destroy the heavens. If the gods block me, I will kill the gods. If the Buddhas block me, I will kill the Buddhas." Destroy. The tyrannical voice struck straight at the soul. The Heaven Destroyer, Sword God, was worthy of being called the Sword God. This tyrannical power, this self-confidence, this powerful strength was definitely not something that the Sword God, the white-clothed Sword God, could compare to. However, Su Yun's aura was not weak at all. Facing the terrifying power of creation, he did not retreat. Instead, he took a step forward and bravely advanced. "Senior Heaven Destroyer, your era has ended," he said in a deep voice. "Even if my era ends, it will not be your turn." The Heaven Destroyer Sword God bellowed. The power of creation transformed into a myriad of sword chi, as though it wanted to cut through space, split open the heaven and earth, and rush toward Su Yun. That terrifying power caused people's souls to tremble. God power. Su Yun bellowed. His god power erupted. All the chi in his body rushed out, forming a faint golden chi cover in front of him. The power of creation struck over, causing the chi cover to tremble, showing a concave arc. It was obvious that it was difficult to hold on. "Your god power is very pure. Among all the Origin Realm experts I have seen, no one's god power is purer than yours. And the way you use your god power is also not bad. With the Divine Meridian as the foundation, the compression of your internal organs, and the flow of your blood, you can instantly release your god power from your body, allowing the power of your god power to reach its limit. But in this way, the consumption of your physical strength will also increase, and the consumption of your god power will also increase by a lot. In this way, you won't be able to continue. Your recovery ability can't compare to mine. What else can you use to fight against me?" The Heaven Destroyer Sword God said with a smile. In his opinion, the outcome of the battle had already been decided. "You're right, but if my god power isn't strong enough, how can I control the power of creation? These two powers are fundamentally different. If I were to rely on the usual gentle sacrificial method, I'm afraid my divine power would be instantly broken through by the power of creation, and I would also be blasted into smithereens by your power of creation. Am I right?" Su Yun said indifferently, "You're right. The profoundness and power of the power of creation is far from what the god power can compare to." The Heaven Destroyer Sword God could not help but reveal a look of surprise. "I never thought that your cultivation would not be strong, but your perception and insight would be so terrifying. This is the first time you have come into contact with the power of creation, but you already have some understanding of it. For a person like you, if you were to acknowledge me as your master, you would definitely shine brightly, but you just offended me, so you must die. I'm not interested in acknowledging you as my master either. I have a lot of masters, but I don't have a single one with a character like yours. You're not qualified." Su Yun snorted, facing the god power that was on the verge of collapse. He actually took a step forward and took another step forward. "Are you courting death?" The Heaven Destroyer Sword God's eyes were filled with anger. Su Yun's words and actions made him want to tear this arrogant brat into pieces. Su Yun could not hold on any longer. Not only did he not retreat, he even went forward. Wasn't he courting death? But just at this moment, his body suddenly trembled slightly. Following that, the god power that appeared in front of him suddenly squirmed and then collapsed. But the moment the god power collapsed, the Heaven Destroyer Sword God's power of creation did not explode towards Su Yun, but instead stuck in the air, neither advancing nor retreating. Could this be? The Heaven Destroyer Sword God was shocked, as though he had sensed something. Whoosh! A ray of primal chaos light exploded out from Su Yun's body, passing through the secret room and shooting out of the 9 heavens. The terrifying power of creation in the secret room was instantly pushed back, and with Su Yun as the center, a vacuum immediately appeared. He had advanced. God's ceiling. The God's ceiling realm. He had stepped past the Origin Void realm and had completely stepped into the God's ceiling realm. From today onwards, he was a god. Damn it. The Heaven Destroyer Sword God finally understood Su Yun's intentions. The reason why he was unwilling to retreat was because he was using him as an opportunity to break through in his cultivation. Although his power of creation was not weak, it was definitely not strong either. Facing Su Yun, who was at the peak of the Origin Void realm, it just so happened to be able to create that kind of extreme pressure. Su Yun had seen this point, which was why he went against it, borrowing the pressure of the power of creation to break through the limits of his cultivation, feeling the power of creation, comprehending the power of creation, and finally breaking through, allowing the god power to transform and step into this terrifying realm. If it was in the past, the Heaven Destroyer Sword God would have killed Su Yun long ago. How could he let him come into contact with the power of creation like this? However, there was still a large number of enemies outside. He had to save some strength for himself to deal with the people who could jump over the Heaven Destroyer Sword and enter the secret room at any time. Unexpectedly, this guy actually used him. After leveling up, Su Yun's body was completely new. The Chi Meridian had changed from a divine meridian to a meridian of creation, and the divine eye had also become an eye of creation. He raised his hand, and a mass of primal chaos gas floated in his palm. The powerful force that contained the heaven and earth was controlled by him. Is this the power of creation? Su Yun raised his sorry-looking face, looked at the Heaven Destroyer Sword God, and smiled. Thank you, Senior. If not for Senior, Junior really doesn't know how long it would take for me to take this step. There were many experts at the peak of the void-returning realm in the immortal world, but those who could cross this realm and reach the conferred god realm were extremely rare. The opportunity was simply too difficult to find, although Su Yun was only a step away from the conferred god realm. If not for the Heaven Destroyer Sword God, it was possible for him to step into the conferred god realm, even if he spent hundreds of years to do so. Bastard! 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 The Heaven Destroyer Sword God was enraged. Facing Su Yun's breakthrough, he decided not to hold back anymore, and the ferocious power of creation directly pounced towards Su Yun. However, Su Yun did not choose to fight with him. Instead, he tapped his feet and jumped towards the door behind him. Brat, you're running away? The Heaven Destroyer Sword God's eyes narrowed. Of course not. I'm just going to take something. You've used up so much energy. Compared to something, you can't control it anymore, right? Su Yun said indifferently and rushed out of the secret room. Hearing that, the Heaven Destroyer Sword God's face changed. Heaven Destroyer Sword. Chapter 1453. The current Su Yun was no longer the same as before. The advancement in his realm had caused his entire being to be reborn. The power of creation was far from what the god power could compare to. After Su Yun leveled up, the new eye of creation would produce a lot of power of creation for Su Yun to use in a short period of time. And in terms of the current strength, the heaven exterminating sword god's strand of soul consciousness was no longer comparable to Su Yun. However, Su Yun was not in a hurry to deal with the heaven exterminating sword god, but directly rushed out of the door. The moment he exited the secret room, the fierce sword chi immediately rushed towards him. Su Yun was shocked. He immediately used the power of creation. The sword chi was completely blocked. Who? Seeing that someone had rushed out of the secret room, everyone's gazes turned to look. However, the person who came out shocked everyone. You're actually not dead. Dilong's eyes widened in shock. You actually came out. It seems like you obtained some benefits from inside. Wenrenju also looked at Su Yun with cold eyes and gloomily. The matters outside had not been resolved, but Su Yun had come out first. Everyone knew what this meant. Su Yun looked around. The heaven exterminating sword was standing not far from the door. The restless sword chi in the air was still emitting a bit of blood chi. It seemed like someone had died just now. His gaze landed on the experts who had rushed over later. Yuan Hong, one of the two peerless geniuses who was on par with Wenrenju, the two great experts Xiao Lung and Yao Hong, as well as the genius Hu Qing who had walked out of the blade domain, were all looking at him with ill intent. They had heard from Wenrenju that someone had already entered the door, but everyone had been arguing endlessly about who should enter the door. No one believed anyone. They all wanted to be the first to enter. In the face of benefits, people would often lose themselves, to the point that even their intelligence would drop by a lot. But Suyin did not put them in his eyes. His gaze landed on the gray-robed old man beside Yuan Hong for a while. The skinny and stooped old man who looked unremarkable raised his head and looked at Su Yun with his dim yellow eyes, a trace of light flashing past. "Who are you to him?" Su Yun pointed at Yuan Hong and asked the old man. Yuan Hong, as the most outstanding genius in the history of the spiritual pedestal tier, will definitely become a god in the future, and may even aspire to the pinnacle. As his guardian, I will stay by his side, the old man said slowly. Though his voice was not loud, it was clear. Then his life should be very important, right? Su Yun asked. Your eyes are sharp, so you should be able to tell. The elder said indifferently. Everyone listened to the conversation between the two. All of them were confused. They did not understand what Su Yun was trying to say. Yuan Hong was even more curious. Why would Su Yun directly talk to you when he who was beside him? Although he was of the older generation of the spiritual pedestal tier and did not interfere in the matters of the spiritual pedestal tier, his existence could affect the development of the spiritual pedestal tier. His status was self-evident, and the reason why he was protecting Ling Han was because he had taken the initiative to suggest it. Otherwise, there really wouldn't be anyone in the spiritual pedestal tier that could invite him. However, this also showed that Yuan valued him. Such a powerful existence valued him, which made Yuan Hong very proud. He was the most outstanding genius of the spiritual pedestal tier, the youngest elite of the origin deity tier, and even his guardian was an elite of the origin deity tier. Thus, the entire celestial realm was under his control. Who dared to be disrespectful to him? Those so-called geniuses could already be viewed as weeds to him. What Wenren-ju, who was equally famous as the twin prodigies, he had long since looked down on them. But now, Su Yun spoke to the old man, Yuan He, and ignored him, which made him extremely displeased. Who are you? You know who I am, right? I am Yuan Hong. If you've heard of my name, you should understand what kind of situation you're in right now. If you want to live, hand over the treasure you just obtained. This way, I can spare your life, only destroy your physical body, and not kill your soul. Yuan Hong said coldly. Yuan Hong, you're quite impressive. Do you really think that your spiritual pedestal tier is invincible? If you're so powerful, why don't you fight it out with the Eternal Deity Assembly? I heard that some time ago, the envoys of the Eternal Deity Assembly came to the spiritual pedestal tier, and your spiritual pedestal tier people served tea and served others comfortably. Why weren't you impressive back then? But today, facing a weakling, you're so impressive. Could it be that the people of the spiritual pedestal tier all bully the weak and fear the strong? Hu Qing, who was in the Blade region, suddenly snorted and said, Hu Qing, do you think that you can be arrogant just because you have more people in the Blade region? In front of me, you don't have the qualifications to be arrogant. You'd better not provoke me, or else I'll make you regret it. Yuan Hong said coldly. What? You think I, Hu Qing, am afraid of you just because you have an apotheosis realm elite following you? Fight me if you're not convinced. If you have the ability, let's fight one-on-one. Whoever's afraid is a coward. Hu Qing shouted at the top of his lungs. Yuan Hong's eyes burned with anger, and he wanted to attack, but seeing the smile on Wenren-ju's face, he clenched his teeth and endured. We'll settle this debt in the future. My goal today is this sword, and we'll talk about other things later. Yuan Hong said solemnly. He didn't want to waste time with Hu Qing's stubborn temper, or else it would only benefit Wenren-ju. Coward, Hu Qing said indifferently. Killing intent flashed in Yuan Hong's eyes, but he didn't say anything else. Su Yun glanced at Yuan Hong, then looked at the old man, and said, Bring them away, or else when we fight later, I'm afraid you won't be able to protect him. If that's the case, your divine pedestal's losses will not be small. These words caused Yuan Hong and the others to be completely stunned. What arrogant words? What did Su Yun mean? Did he think he could overturn the heavens? Unexpectedly, the gray-robed old man beside Yuan Hong said in a low voice, Are you threatening my divine pedestal? This sword is not fated with you. If you leave, you don't have to bear the losses. But if you insist on seizing this sword, then your divine pedestal will regret it. Su Yun said indifferently. From Yu Wenhong's repeated threats, he no longer had a good impression of the divine pedestal, so of course there was no need to be polite. You must think about the consequences of doing so. The divine pedestal is an existence that even the ancient god assembly doesn't dare to force. If you choose to be our enemy, I'm afraid you won't be able to live in peace in the future. The old man said in a low voice. Are you threatening me? Su Yun raised his head, his eyes shooting a ruthless light as he stared at the old man. The old man's brows slightly twitched, his expression extremely ugly. He hesitated for a moment, but chose to remain silent. Yu Wenhong was stunned. He asked in a low voice, Old Crane, what's going on? Who is that person? I don't know who that person is, but his cultivation realm should have reached the god-sealing realm. You're not his match. If he wants to kill you, I'm worried that I won't be able to protect you. Moreover, it will be very difficult for me to keep him here. When he was the clearest about the power of creation. This kind of miraculous power was something that ordinary divine power could not contend against. If the two god-sealing realm experts were to really fight, most of the origin realm experts here would probably be buried with them. Hearing Yu Wenhe's words, Yu Wenhong's expression became extremely ugly. God-sealing realm? He never thought that Su Yun would have such a method. No wonder this person dared to ignore his existence and directly chose to talk to Yu Wenhe. Because in his eyes, these origin realm fellows were no threat at all. He gritted his teeth, but did not retreat. Instead, he said in a low voice, Old Crane, are you looking down on me? I am a genius of the Yuan clan. If he wants to kill me, it won't be that easy. Moreover, I still have the divine curse bestowed by my father. Even if he is a god-sealing realm expert, he would have to think twice before killing me. Hearing that, Yu Wenhe pondered for a moment, then nodded. If it's a divine curse, then I'm not afraid of this person. However, using it here would be too wasteful. This sword's power is extraordinary. Exchanging the divine curse for this sword is definitely worth it. Moreover, there's still a lot of treasures in that sect, right? Yu Wenhong said. If it wasn't for the fact that Yu Wenhe was worried about the powers behind these people, he would have already slaughtered Hu Qing, Wenrinju, and the others. However, if a god-sealing realm expert killed these people, once the news leaked, the divine pedestal would definitely become the target of public criticism. If he died while fighting with Yu Wenhong, it could only be said that his skills were inferior. But now that Su Yun had appeared, Yu Wenhe knew that he could no longer remain silent. Young master, since you've already decided, then be careful, Yu Wenhe said in a low voice, then took a step forward, and a wave of creation power pressed toward Su Yun. Yu Wenhe had been in the god-sealing realm for many years, and his creation power was extremely dense, but Su Yun had just advanced, and his creation power had not stabilized yet. Just that, at this realm, what they truly fought with was not only the creation power, but also other techniques and abilities. Su Yun snorted and released his sword force. Rumble, 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 the ground trembled when Renju, Di Long, and the rest retreated, all of them looking at Su Yun in shock. What was going on? Why was he able to release such a terrifying might? His chi seems to be different from ours. Too terrifying. Did he obtain some kind of powerful magic treasure in there? Di Long said in shock. No matter what, we must make him stay here today. When Renju said gloomily. The old man had already decided to make his move, then the battle was unavoidable. Su Yun needed time to obtain the sword, and these people would definitely disturb him. Only by forcing them to retreat would he be able to obtain the sword with peace of mind. He leaped up, using the power of creation to leap over the Heaven Destroyer sword, and pressed down towards the old man. Although he had just advanced to the god-sealing realm, his understanding of power far surpassed the old man. Su Yun, who had been lingering between life and death for a long time, already had a powerful aura that was different from ordinary people, and it was because of this aura that he dared to challenge even stronger existences. Furthermore, the old man would not let Su Yun go. Yu Wenhong made his decision. He could only fight if Su Yun did not make a move and let the gray-robed old man make a move. Once Su Yun was forced into the secret room, it would be terrible. Therefore, Su Yun had to make the first move. Chapter 1454. The two powers of creation collided in the air, causing the space to shake violently, vaguely distorting and shattering. The entire space was sometimes cold and sometimes hot, sometimes heavy and oppressive, and sometimes rippling. The whistling sword intent seemed to ignore space, piercing through the old man's power of creation and striking towards the old man. The old man's expression changed slightly. He immediately leaped back, the power of creation in his hand quickly rotating, condensing into a divine ability. Millions of stars appeared in the air, forming an extremely complicated killing star formation. The terrifying star formation was instantly activated. Millions of starlight struck towards Su Yun. When the immortals fought, the mortals suffered. There is a fundamental difference between the experts of the sealed god realm and the existences of the ruins, and the difference between the divine power and the power of creation was like the difference between heaven and earth. They could only watch from afar, and could not even get close, or else they would suffer calamity. The heaven-exterminating sword that was stabbed into the door seemed to have sensed the battle between the two. The starlight fell, but it did not injure Su Yun. The terrifying power of creation formed a terrifying rain barrier in front of him, and it did not break. But after this round, Su Yun's power of creation had probably consumed quite a bit. Previously, when he was fighting against the heaven-exterminating sword god, he broke through his cultivation, and the power of creation in his body was temporarily produced, so he was not in a good state. Facing the old man, he could not win just by relying on his aura. As the saying goes, the first beat of the drum, the second beat of the drum, and the third beat of the drum. Although Su Yun's aura was sufficient, it could only be one or two, and if this continued, he would definitely lose. Kill! The gray-robed old man took a step forward, crossing the void, and instantly landed in front of Su Yun, his fist carrying the destructive might of heaven and earth, smashing towards Su Yun. For a time, heaven and earth cried out, and the power of heaven and earth was stirred. If this was not a place of experts, they would have been smashed into smithereens by the terrifying power of creation. Limitless sword arts. Su Yun pointed with his finger, releasing the sword art. The chi sword was like a lotus, twisting towards the old man. The old man's terrifying fist was smashed into pieces before it could even hit, and he could not help but retreat. Although his fist was shattered, it was not a big deal. At this realm, as long as his body was not vital, he could use the power of creation to recreate it. Limitless sword arts? You are the successor of the sword ancestor? The old man stared at Su Yun, a trace of surprise flashing past his eyes. You know my master ancestor? Su Yun frowned. How can I not know? The sword ancestor's natural talent was extraordinary, and he was an extraordinary genius in the sword Tao. Unfortunately, he was plotted against all those years ago. Otherwise, at this point in time, it wouldn't be impossible for him to attain the Tao and become a god. The gray-robed old man looked at Su Yun, his eyes flashing with a strange light. What a pity! You are the inheritor of the sword ancestor. Your talent is not the slightest bit inferior to the sword ancestor. And now that you are in the conferred god realm, an existence like you has already broken the balance of the immortal world. Your future achievements are limitless. But today, you have become the enemy of the Yuan family. No matter what price I have to pay, I have to kill you here. If not in the future, you will definitely become a stumbling block for Yuan Hong. A person's life is filled with countless ups and downs. How can it be filled by others? Only by blazing a trail of thorns and thorns would one be able to walk a glorious life. If you guys were to pave the way for Yuan Hong, his future achievements would not be high. Su Yun said coldly. Madman, do you really think you're stronger than me just because you're in the Ascendant God realm? I will definitely kill you in the future. Yuan Hong was unable to restrain his anger. The gray-robed old man snorted. A light aura flashed in his hand, and a long and lustrous strange weapon with a curved blade appeared. He raised the terrifying weapon and slashed toward Su Yun. In the darkness, Su Yun actually had an illusion that his soul was being sealed. The gray-robed old man was no longer holding back. He wanted to kill Su Yun. Otherwise, there would be endless trouble in the future. Interesting. Luckily that brat Yuan Hong has such an expert following him. If not, we would all have died in Su Yun's hands today. Wen Renju said, while beaming. Dilong's expression was ugly. He never thought that the person accompanying Di Qing would be so terrifying to be able to fight against even the experts of the Yuan family. Hu Qing's gaze was even more passionate, but he was not looking at Su Yun, but the weapon in the gray-robed old man's hand. Void Godblade. It's the Void Godblade. It's a divine blade that can cut through the void and suppress the soul. I never thought that this treasure would actually be in the Yuan family. Hu Qing used a blade, and this blade was a top-quality blade, so he was naturally excited. Bang, 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 bang. A series of explosions sounded out in the void, and with a long sound, Su Yun brandished his sword. The dual moon sword's cold sword edge carried the power of creation, clashing with the Void Godblade. The power of the blade and sword was like fire and water, clashing in the air, creating a chaotic region. The surrounding walls and floor were already riddled with holes, with signs of collapse. The master of this place was definitely a sealed god existence. How could his palace be made of ordinary materials? But this powerful palace could not withstand the fight of a sealed god expert. Wen Renju, Dilong, Hu Qing, Xiao Lung, Yao Hong, and Yuan Hong all looked at Su Yun and the old man. No one dared to act blindly without thinking. Before the victor was revealed, they still had to wait and see. The gray-robed old man could see that Su Yun had just entered the sealed god realm and was not familiar with the use of the power of creation. The power of creation in his body was not much and was not stable, so every move he made was fierce and overbearing. Even if he could not kill Su Yun, he could at least exhaust his power of creation. Like that, Su Yun's death was not far. But what made the gray-robed old man slightly surprised was that from start to finish, Su Yun did not reveal any fear or panic. His expression was calm. His eyes revealed confidence, arrogance. This was not arrogance, but a strange belief. Confidence? Did he believe in the sword in his hand? The gray-robed old man was completely shocked. Su Yun actually believed that he still had a chance of winning. He believed in the sword in his hand, believed in his sword Dao. I will make you regret your arrogance and ignorance, the gray-robed old man said in a deep voice. He could not let Su Yun condense this belief. If not, his sword Dao would once again take a step forward. If that was the case, in Yuan Hong's future path, there would most likely be a strong opponent. The gray-robed old man took a step forward. The Void Godblade in his hand fiercely waved. The power of creation rushed out from the blade, forming a huge 5 elements divine diagram in the air. The power of creation was split and recombined, condensing into an even more terrifying power. The old man's understanding of the power of creation was already very terrifying. Any trace of the power of creation he used could change the heaven and earth, overturn the stars. The 5 elements divine diagram flew over, pouncing towards Su Yun. The energy between the 5 elements was extremely balanced, not converging together, giving people a breathtaking feeling. But Su Yun took a step forward and instantly disappeared. So fast, the 5 elements divine diagram missed, and in the next second, the gray-robed old man felt a terrifying killing power. Kill! Su Yun spat out a word. The twin moon sword instantly descended. The resplendent sword aura shot out, bringing along the terrifying power of the sword of creation. The gray-robed old man was extremely shocked. He hastily dodged, but was too slow. One of his arms was directly cut off. Breathtaking. It was simply breathtaking. This attack, whether it was speed, power, or aura, Su Yun had grasped it extremely well. When a spirit cultivator faced an enemy, it did not mean that a high cultivation realm could defeat everything. A good state of mind could be used to its fullest potential. The most important thing was a person's state of mind and grasp of the battle situation. Under the pressure of the gray-robed old man, Su Yun was actually able to unleash such a breathtaking attack. It was simply breathtaking. His speed and attack had reached an impeccable level. If it wasn't for the fact that there was still a gap in strength between him and the gray-robed old man, the gray-robed old man wouldn't have just lost an arm, but his life. The gray-robed old man groaned. He explosively retreated, a pair of dim yellow eyes looking at Su Yun viciously. "You are indeed extraordinary. Looks like I will not hesitate to kill you today. Can you really do it?" Su Yun shook his head. "I'll have to trouble you to really do it. If not, it will just be boasting and will only make me laugh." "Very good." The gray-robed old man was completely enraged. At that moment, he no longer had any scruples. He was risking everything to eliminate Su Yun. He formed hand seals with one hand. The power of creation shot towards Su Yun like the sky. It was majestic. There was nowhere for him to escape. At this time, the old man had already taken out all the power of creation in his body, almost filling up the space in front of him. Su Yun had no place to hide. This move, there was nowhere to escape. Has the victor been decided? Xiao Lung's eyes trembled. In the end, he still lost. Although this person is terrifying, the one from the Yuan family is not a simple person. How can he be so easy to deal with? Yao Hong said. Hee, this reckless fellow, is he finally going to die? Di Long laughed coldly. The hatred he had for Su Yun in his heart was greater than these people. If not for Su Yun, their Di-Ming immortal manor would not be in such a miserable state. One Rinju laughed. As for Hu Qing, he was staring at the void god blade floating beside the old man. Swordsmen love swords, and swordsmen naturally love swords. Kill him. Yuan Hong stared at Su Yun and shouted coldly. Kill me? Su Yun frowned, but did not retreat. Instead, he stared at the old man and said indifferently, "You'd better quickly retract your power of creation. If not, I am worried that you will regret it." The old man was startled and asked in shock, "What do you mean?" But in the next second, Su Yun made his move. A void appeared in front of him, and his hand directly extended into the void. The old man was shocked. He anxiously grabbed onto the void god blade and slashed backwards, but he was too slow. Yuan Hong, who was behind him, immediately disappeared, and when he reappeared, he was already beside Su Yun. Scatter! The old man anxiously roared. The terrifying power of creation that was pouncing towards Su Yun instantly disappeared. Su Yun actually used the power of plucking the air to capture Yuan Hong as a hostage. The old man suddenly understood. Could it be that this person's crazy battle with him just now was just a pretense? From the very beginning, he had his eyes on Yuan Hong, whom he had always been protecting. He should know that there was no hope of defeating him, which was why he did this. How could a sealed God realm existence be able to determine the victor so quickly? Su Yun could not afford to drag this on. What a terrifying young man, to be able to remain so calm in such a situation, such meticulous thoughts. It was simply terrifying. The old man focused his eyes, his killing intent becoming heavier and heavier. Chapter 1455. Yuan Hong being captured was out of everyone's expectations. And before Yuan Hong could resist, the surging power of creation wrapped around him, sealing all the divine veins and divine eyes in his body. Do you know what you're doing? Let me go, or else the divine pedestal will make you die without a burial. Yuan Hong roared, but in the next second, one of his arms was cut off. Ah! Yuan Hong screamed, his face pale. If you speak any more nonsense, I will take your life, leaving only your soul, Su Yun said calmly, without a trace of emotion in his words. If Yuan Hong was arrogant before, then he understood now. He should believe that Su Yun would do as he said. He was so ruthless and decisive. He could not challenge his patience. What do you want? The gray-robed elder asked nervously. Bring them out of here. I can guarantee that Yuan Hong is unharmed. If you take another step forward, Yuan Hong's soul will scatter. Su Yun said indifferently. When the old man heard this, he hesitated for a moment before finally turning around and shouting at these people, "All of you retreat. You and he, you're a senior of the divine pedestal, powerful. We admire you, but this time we came for the treasure. You want us to retreat just because you want us to? If this gets out, won't our heavenly sword sect lose face? How will we stand in the celestial realm in the future?" Wenren frowned and said in a low voice, "If you don't retreat, then die. Yuan Hong is in his hands. I must ensure that Yuan Hong is unharmed, and for that, I don't mind killing you," the elders said coldly, leaving no room for discussion. Wenren expression changed, and he gritted his teeth. "Divine pedestal. Very well." With that, he led Mu Ziyin and the people of Heavenly Sword Sect to retreat. The Blade region would not provoke him, and retreated as well. Loose immortals Xiao Lung and Yao Hong would not disobey. They did not have any background. How could they dare to offend Yuan He? Yuan He was not in a hurry to leave, but looked at Su Yun from afar, and said solemnly, "I have already done as you said. What do you want in order to let Yuan Hong go?" "Don't be anxious," Su Yun said indifferently, then pulled out the dual moon sword and fiercely stabbed in front of Yuan Hong. The terrifying sword released a pale, blue sword intent that directly seeped into Yuan Hong's body. Soul-suppressing divine sword? Yuan He's face slightly changed. In front of the twin moon sword, Yuan Hong was like a statue, motionless. Only his eyes could move, and he looked at the sword in front of him in horror. He felt like his entire body was bound by invisible shackles. "Young master, you don't need to panic. He's just using the power of creation to use that sword to shock your soul. It won't hurt you much." Yuan He shouted, "Hurry up and save me." Yuan Hong roared, his liver and guts trembling. "Wait, I'll save you right away." Yuan He shouted, "You'd better stay there obediently. In that case, maybe Yuan Hong can still keep his life." Su Yun said indifferently, then immediately turned and walked towards the sword standing in front of the door. Seeing that, Yuan He suddenly understood. Su Yun's goal was still that sword. He used his own sword to suppress Yuan Hong, and used him as a hostage to threaten everyone. With Yuan Hong in his hands, Yuan He did not dare to act rashly, and was even restrained by Su Yun. As long as he could use Yuan He, the others would not be able to do anything to Su Yun. He could now safely retrieve the sword. Su Yun did not have the slightest bit of hesitation. With large strides, he walked towards the Heaven Destroyer sword, as though he could feel the pressure from the person's body. The Heaven Destroyer sword's body also started to tremble. Su Yun's previous plan to take the sword was to calculate that the remaining energy of the Heaven Destroyer sword God Soul was not strong, and the connection with the Heaven Destroyer sword was not strong, so he planned to subdue the sword. Although he had fought with Yuan He and consumed a lot of energy, he believed that it should not be weaker than the Heaven Destroyer Sword God's current energy. The Heaven Destroyer Sword released its sword force, blocking Su Yun's approach. The same terrifying sword might also struck towards the Heaven Destroyer Sword. The Heaven Destroyer Sword's sword force was strong, but it was unable to completely stop Su Yun. At this moment, a large amount of sword chi spewed out from the Heaven Destroyer sword. This terrifying sword chi was so fast that it disappeared without a trace. This was the sword chi used to slay the void-returning powerhouse. The sword chi of the Heaven Destroyer sword was different. Its power and speed surpassed the limits of Sword Dao. It could destroy the heavens and the earth and was unstoppable. But the moment the sword chi approached, Su Yun disappeared. What? Yuan He was shocked. What a fast speed. How is this possible? This speed even surpassed his. How could an existence that had just stepped into the conferred God realm possess such speed? This had already surpassed light and was equivalent to teleportation. If he only relied on the power of creation to support this speed, with Su Yun's current state, it would be impossible for him to hold on for long. No, Yuan He seemed to have caught on as something, and his expression changed slightly. Wind. That was the aura of the wind. Moreover, it was not an ordinary wind. It was a divine wind, the purest divine wind, the limit of the power of the wind. This power should not have come from Su Yun himself, but the power of the five elements in Su Yun's power of creation resonated with the power of the divine wind, causing the divine wind to be used for his own use. This required a very high understanding of the power of creation. This person had just stepped into the conferred God realm, but he was able to understand the power of creation so thoroughly. He could be said to be a monster. Killing intent rose in Yuan-He's heart. Since he had gone against this guy, he had to eliminate him. If he was allowed to grow, he would probably become a great enemy of the divine pedestal realm. Ha! At this moment, a crisp sound rang out. The space around the Heaven Destroyer's sword distorted, and then a figure shot out from the void, directly grabbed the Heaven Destroyer sword's blade, and suddenly pulled it out. In this person's other hand, there was still a shiny pearl tightly clasped in his hand. The Heaven Destroyer's sword was raised high, and the sword trembled crazily. The sound of the sword crying resounded throughout the entire palace. The sword power exploded, crashing in all directions. One Renju and the others who were retreating felt the terrifying sword power attack them, and all of them were terrified. They frantically retreated, not daring to face it head-on. "They're taking the sword." The woman beside Wen Renju said solemnly. "We are not Yuan-He's opponent. Let's inform the sect first." Wen Renju's anger soared to the sky, and he said in a low voice. Su Yun clenched his teeth, and all the power of creation in his body flowed along his arm and fiercely surged towards the Heaven Destroyer's sword. "Stop!" He roared loudly, and the Heaven Destroyer's sword trembled crazily, as if it was going to shatter his arm. The sword power surged crazily, and the chaotic sword chi tore the earth and space apart. Yuan Hong, whose soul was suppressed by the Twin Moon Sword, had a drastic change in expression. He was terrified, and looking at the sword chi pouncing towards him, he was so scared that he lost all his strength. If not for his soul being shaken, he would have already fallen to the ground. But at this moment, a figure scuttled over and directly picked up Yuan Hong. It was Yuan-He. "We can't let this kid take the sword." A cold light flashed in Yuan-He's eyes. The moment he saved Yuan Hong, his palm trembled, and the void god blade appeared. He waved it at Su Yun, and in an instant, the blade released the power of the void, directly distorting the space around Su Yun. Su Yun, who was still fighting with the Heaven Destroyer's sword, was caught off guard, and was directly struck by the sword, causing him to retreat. If not for the power of the void being offset by the Heaven Destroyer's sword chi, his body would have long been dislocated by the power of the void. The Heaven Destroyer's sword seized the opportunity and released a mournful sword hiss. It suddenly twisted and slashed downwards, straight towards Su Yun's head. "Sword desire to kill? Submit to me!" Su Yun roared again and again, both hands holding onto the sword, ignoring the injuries on his body. His eyes were blood red. He raised the sword and waved it crazily towards Yuan-He. The Heaven Destroyer sword was slowly waved by him, and in the instant that the sword was waved, a destructive storm rushed out from the Heaven Destroyer sword. Like a huge wave, it swept towards Yuan-He. "This is bad." Yuan-He's face was extremely ugly. He immediately activated the magic treasure, and the two of them escaped far away, dodging in a sorry state, but the destructive wave actually ignored everything, instantly destroying more than half of the palace, directly blasting through the place. The sky changed color. The destructive aura dyed the place like the end of the world. The void was filled with despair, fear, and hesitation. Under this sword, even the thick earth of the sky could be destroyed. Uffed! Su Yun spat out a mouthful of blood. The little bit of good fortune chi in his body started to fluctuate. The Heaven Destroyer sword was still struggling, but he held onto the sword hilt tightly, not allowing the sword to attack again. The terrifying power of good fortune lingered on the Heaven Destroyer sword's body, searching for the imprint left behind by the Heaven Destroyer sword god. Found it. Suddenly, Su Yun realized that there was a golden sword seal on the sword hilt of the Heaven Destroyer sword, shining brightly. Die! Just then, a voice sounded out in Su Yun's mind. The Heaven Destroyer sword god had made his move. The wisp of consciousness had always been paying attention to the battle outside the door. He knew that his imprint had been detected by Su Yun, and immediately communicated with the Heaven Destroyer sword. The struggling sword body suddenly erupted with power, and directly broke free from Su Yun's hand, flying into the air. Su Yun's eyes congealed. He immediately pounced forward and grabbed onto the sword body with both hands. "Fool! The Heaven Destroyer sword god inside the secret room suddenly sneered and immediately issued an order to the Heaven Destroyer sword. The terrifying sword body immediately released a destructive aura. If Su Yun still did not let go, the destructive aura would not only destroy his hands, it would also crush his body. Is it really that stupid? Su Yun's eyes turned cold. He suddenly raised his hand and grabbed at the air. Whiz! In that moment, the space distorted, and immediately after, a body was grabbed by Su Yun. It was the body of the Heaven Destroyer, sword god inside the secret room. Without the slightest hesitation, he pushed the Heaven Destroyer sword god's body in front of the Heaven Destroyer sword. What? The Heaven Destroyer sword god's heart jumped. He anxiously ordered the Heaven Destroyer sword to stop attacking. The Heaven Destroyer sword immediately calmed down, and in that split second, Su Yun suddenly grabbed onto the Heaven Destroyer sword's sword hilt and fiercely smashed towards the Heaven Destroyer sword god's body. Poochie! The sharp sword pierced through his body. The Heaven Destroyer sword god continued to transmit orders to the Heaven Destroyer sword, intending to kill Su Yun, but he neglected his own defense. Su Yun had calculated that he did not have much good fortune power, which was why he decided to cut off all means of retreat and fight to the death. Chapter 1456. The Heaven Destroyer sword pierced into the Heaven Destroyer sword god's body, and that strand of consciousness immediately trembled. In Su Yun's mind, it was as if he could hear that wisp of consciousness roaring. The Heaven Destroyer sword god had many consciousnesses, and each consciousness represented something. This strand of consciousness seemed to be the rejection consciousness in the heart of the Heaven Destroyer sword god, rejecting everything, rejecting the outside world, and sealing off his self-consciousness. Su Yun did not know why the Heaven Exterminating Sword God left behind such a consciousness, but he understood that this was not the strongest consciousness of the Heaven Exterminating Sword God. Furthermore, the Heaven Exterminating Sword did not seem to acknowledge this consciousness. Otherwise, this consciousness would not have used the power of creation to control the Heaven Exterminating Sword. And the Heaven Destroyer Sword was only protecting this body. The blade pierced through, and the remaining trace of consciousness of the Heaven Destroyer Sword God finally shattered. The sword mark on the Heaven Destroyer sword also disappeared completely. However, Su Yun's move had its pros and cons. Although he had successfully destroyed the last of the Heaven Exterminating Sword God's consciousness, he had also angered the Heaven Exterminating Sword. The sword had guarded the tomb for 10,000 years, but Su Yun had used his master's body to block it, which had completely angered the sword. The Heaven Extinguishing Sword's ferocious nature was stimulated by Su Yun. The entire sword trembled crazily. The sword might and sword force were released at the same time, causing the entire palace to collapse. Su Yun held onto the sword hilt tightly, gritting his teeth. Even though his soul was trembling, he did not let go, and the small amount of creation power frantically surged towards the sword. Although the sword is intelligent, but it also needed someone to control it. Since you are a sword, you should be controlled by me. Otherwise, do you want to stay here forever? Su Yun's eyes were blood red as he roared. He was not worried that the Heaven Destroyer sword would kill him, but that the Heaven Destroyer sword would destroy itself. The Heaven Exterminating Sword God was no longer in this world. The Heaven Exterminating Sword was his sword, and once its master died, it would most likely fall on its own. The reason why the Heaven Exterminating Sword had not collapsed on its own was because it anxiously wanted to kill Su Yun. If he wanted to control this sword, he had to make it acknowledge him. Furthermore, he had to subdue it in the shortest amount of time. Otherwise, Su Yun would have wasted his efforts. The power of creation could not completely refine the Heaven Destroyer sword. He needed an even more powerful energy to help him. Time was running out. Su Yun's eyes turned cold. He suddenly thought of something and no longer had any scruples. He directly took out a translucent small sword from the space bag and fiercely slashed at the Heaven Destroyer sword. The small sword rippled with gray chi, making it look extremely evil. This sword was the sword that Su Yun had used to kill the great immortal judge, and inside the sword was the evil sword Qi. Wang. The aura of the ominous sword seemed to have infuriated the Heaven Destroyer sword, causing it to tremble even more violently. Su Yun could only hear his own arm emitting a kacha sound, as though it had broken. "Stop right there." Su Yun's eyes were red. His long hair fluttered in the wind. The skin and flesh on his body were almost torn to pieces by the heaven-exterminating sword Qi, but he still did not show any signs of letting go. At this moment, he was completely relying on his willpower to fight against the heaven-exterminating sword, and the ominous sword Qi within the small sword was completely released by him. Half of the grayish-black ominous sword Qi flowed towards the Heaven Destroyer sword, while the other half surged towards Su Yun's body like a poisonous snake. Without the Heaven Destroyer sword, the demon saint would not be able to be saved, and he would not be able to fight against the ancient heavenly gods. The heavenly gods had seized the ominous sword, and everything would be destroyed. This time, he definitely cannot give up. Su Yun roared. He activated all of the ominous sword Qi to cover the Heaven Destroyer sword, causing the entire sword to turn pitch black, as though it was dyed black. Dong! 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 A terrifying explosion sounded out around Su Yun. The surging sword Qi wanted to break through the suppression of the ominous sword, but it was powerless. The ominous sword was the strongest sword in the world. It only needed one sword to destroy the world. No divine sword could contend against it. Even if it was just a bit of Qi, it would be extraordinary. Although the Heaven Destroyer sword was only facing the ominous sword Qi, it did not have the slightest intention of yielding. The Qi was extremely powerful, and the Heaven Destroyer sword was using all of its strength to contend against it. Su Yun stared at the sword, his eyes flashing with a hint of fierceness. It was extremely difficult to control the Heaven Destroyer sword just by relying on the ominous sword's Qi, but it had successfully restrained the sword might of the Heaven Destroyer sword, giving him a chance to catch his breath. His gaze swept across and suddenly grabbed onto the sword hilt of the Heaven Destroyer sword with both hands, all of his power surging towards the sword hilt. Using his mind and soul to guide it, he carved a sword imprint on the sword hilt of the Heaven Destroyer sword. The Heaven Destroyer sword seemed to have sensed Su Yun's intentions. The sword body released millions of sword Qi, wanting to kill Su Yun, but the ominous sword Qi that entered Su Yun's body immediately surged out, covering the surface of his body. The sword Qi struck, but was unable to penetrate the ominous sword Qi. The entire dead, immortal domain shook. The aura within the domain was in turmoil, like a huge wave, continuously churning, and the immortals inside and outside the domain were all stunned. They did not know what had happened, and thought that it was caused by some supreme expert fighting inside the dead immortal domain. Of course, this strange phenomenon also attracted many experts to descend, especially the people from the Divine Pedestal Sect, Heavenly Sword Sect, Saber Domain, and Di Ming Immortal Villa. Yuan he had saved Yuan Hong, and originally wanted to sneak attack Su Yun, but unexpectedly, Su Yun had backhanded him and almost lost his life. Now that Su Yun wanted to pull out the heaven-exterminating sword. The sword Qi was in turmoil, and even the existence of the sealed god realm did not dare to approach. However, this did not mean that he had to give up. A few people from the immortal sects all asked for help from their sects and families, and a large number of experts rushed over. More and more people gathered in the dead immortal domain, and the storm that was about to come had already descended. The sword seal slowly formed on the sword hilt of the Heaven Destroyer sword, and the ominous sword Qi around Su Yun's body was like broken glass, peeling off bit by bit. The Heaven Destroyer sword was completely crazy. It did not care what kind of existence this Qi was. Su Yun believed that even if it faced a true ominous sword, it would not be afraid and would dare to fight. Good. Ha ha ha. Su Yun laughed maniacally, ignoring the wounds all over his body. What he wanted was this kind of sword. It would rather break than bend, and if it succumbed to the sword Qi of the ominous sword, he would be disappointed. A true sword would dare to defy the heavens. Even the heavens would be destroyed. Finally, the Heaven Destroyer sword's sword Qi slowly weakened. The sword seal had completely formed, and the terrifying sword chi was also slowly disappearing. Wah! The sword intent in the surroundings suddenly exploded, turning into ripples that swept across the surrounding 10,000 miles, like a blooming lotus. Then, everything returned to normal, as if a heavy rain had passed. The imprint had finally been formed. Su Yun heaved a sigh of relief. His entire body seemed to be on the verge of collapse. He held onto the Heaven Destroyer sword that had already calmed down, took 2 steps back, and almost fell to the ground. His consciousness was about to faint. If not for his willpower, he would have fallen long ago. He sat on the ground, gasping for breath. The meridian of fortune and the eye of fortune in his body had already dried up. The chi meridian had completely withered and had already been bombarded to an unrecognizable state by the Heaven Destroyer sword force. He hurriedly sat down cross-legged, took out a pill, and stuffed it into his mouth to recuperate. Most of the ominous sword's aura was destroyed by the Heaven Destroyer sword, and the remaining energy could be used by Su Yun. However, not long after, Su Yun suddenly opened his eyes, and his expression became serious. There seems to be a lot of people around. Having already entered the God realm, his perception was many times stronger than before. He knew everything within 100,000 miles like the back of his hand, and could even vaguely catch the slightest movement within 100,000 miles. They should all be here for the Heaven Destroyer sword. He thought for a moment, stood up, put away the Heaven Destroyer sword, and quickly rushed out. At this moment, a terrifying aura came pressing down on him. They were all experts of the Void Returning Realm. Why didn't so many experts appear when the Immortal Court suppressed the immortal world, but now that the Divine Sword has appeared, it has attracted so many experts? Could it be that cultivators have already forgotten their original intentions for the sake of their own interests? Su Yun thought coldly, and looked down on these Void Returning Realm experts. Back then, there weren't many Void Returning Realm experts in the Immortal Court, but there weren't many Void Returning Realm experts who resisted the Immortal Court. If there were a few people willing to stand up at that time, how could the Immortal Court be able to cover the sky with one hand? Could it be that there were still some secrets that he didn't know? He was injured and his aura was weak. Walking in this huge, dead immortal domain, he didn't attract much attention. The dead immortal domain was incomparably huge, so it was naturally impossible for it to only have one palace. Su Yun could be considered to have been extremely lucky to be able to obtain the Heaven Destroyer sword so quickly, but he didn't have much strength left and was unable to activate the teleportation token to return to the sect. Suddenly, Su Yun's footsteps slowed down. The clouds in front of him gradually thinned out, and a beautiful scene of lush greenery appeared in his line of sight. The grass was everywhere, and the fragrance of flowers filled the air. And in the middle of the forest, there was actually a small house. How is this possible? In the previous battle with the Heaven Destroyer sword, the terrifying sword intent had probably spread to this place. If it was an ordinary object, it would have been destroyed, but this place seemed to be safe. This was impossible. Su Yun was astonished. After thinking for a moment, he raised his foot and walked over. This place seemed to be a place where someone lived in seclusion. However, who would live in seclusion in the dead, immortal domain? It seems that you have obtained that sword. At this moment, a voice came out. Immediately after, a handsome young man wearing a leather coat walked out of the small house. The young man's eyes were closed, and he had a buzz cut. His aura was almost completely gone, but his face was facing Su Yun. Sword? What do you mean? Su Yun frowned and asked in a low voice. Naturally, it's the Heaven Destroyer sword. Who are you? Just a tomb guard. Tomb guard? Whose tomb? Anyway, it's not the tomb of the Heaven Destroyer sword god. The young man smiled and said, but then again, the Heaven Destroyer sword god is just a tomb robber. He is arrogant because he has a divine sword like the Heaven Destroyer sword. If he wasn't arrogant and unscrupulous, he wouldn't have been killed by those who had their eyes on the Heaven Destroyer sword. It's a pity that this sword has been guarded by a mediocre master for 1,000 years. What a pity, what a pity. Hearing that, Su Yun was extremely shocked. Could this young man be in existence from the ancient times? Chapter 1457. Since the heaven-exterminating sword god is here for the tomb, and you're also a tomb keeper, then why is the tomb? Suyin stared at the young man and asked, "It doesn't matter why the tomb is the tomb. What's important is that the dead need peace." The young man said. Hearing that, Su Yun nodded his head. "Since that's the case, then I will not disturb your peace. Farewell." He then turned and left. Wait. Just then, the young man suddenly spoke. "Is there anything else?" Su Yun asked. However, the young man smiled and said, "You have obtained the Heaven Destroyer sword, which is also an opportunity. However, your current injury is not good, and there's a small amount of ominous sword chi suppressing your power of creation. If you can't get rid of this ominous sword chi, your injury will recover very slowly." Hearing that, Su Yun's heart turned cold. You can tell with a single glance that the chi on my body is the evil sword chi. It seems like you're not an ordinary person. To be honest, the owner of the tomb that I am guarding died under the evil sword. The young man laughed, his eyes filled with a trace of sorrow, and said, "The evil sword exterminating the world is actually because the world is too dirty. But the evil sword exterminating the world, how decisive is it? It purifies the sins of the world, but also buries the beauty of the world. This world is like this. There are two sides to everything. There are pros and cons. To judge whether something is right or wrong, you only need to judge whether the pros outweigh the cons. The world is too dirty." Su Yun muttered, then asked, "For what you said, could it be that you are someone from before the evil sword exterminating the world?" "There are no absolutes in the world. The evil sword exterminating the world, but can it really destroy everything? There are always some people who use some strange methods to survive, although there are not many." Su Yun felt that he was extremely shocked. The information that this person revealed to him was unbelievable. All of this was almost an ancient secret. Even the sword ancestor did not know. Perhaps he should ask Ling Qingyu about more things, but would she really say it? "Come with me." The young man smiled, turned around, and walked into the house. Su Yun hesitated for a moment, but still followed. This young man's cultivation was unfathomable and was definitely stronger than him. If he really had enmity, why would he need to play tricks? The current Su Yun could not even unleash 1% of the Heaven Destroyer sword's power. After entering the house, his field of vision suddenly became clear. It turned out that the house was just an illusion, and there was actually a small world inside. The mountains were continuous, the sky was blue, and the grass was green. Countless immortal beasts were happily playing in this unpolluted world, and it was extremely harmonious. What made Su Yun even more surprised was that there were no carnivorous immortal beasts here, and all the existences coexisted peacefully, causing people to exclaim in admiration. The young man led Su Yun to a hot spring in the center and stopped in his tracks. "This is the water of the divine pool refined by the person in the tomb. Go in. The water is miraculous and can nourish your body's withered meridians." The young man smiled. Su Yun nodded and entered the pool. In that moment, an astonishing feeling of warmth immediately surged up. That shocking and comfortable feeling was something that Su Yun would never forget. His entire body was soaked in the pool water, and he could clearly feel the withered meridians in his body recovering at an astonishing speed. In less than 10 breaths of time, Su Yun felt that his condition had recovered to its peak. What is this? How could the effect be so terrifying? I'm afraid that the so-called bejeweled nectar is just a common thing in front of this. Su Yun thought. A day later, the young man walked over and saw that Su Yun was still in the pool with his eyes closed. Although the pool water is good, you don't have to soak it for too long. The effects will weaken a lot later on. If you want to become stronger, you need to continue cultivating. The young man laughed. Su Yun nodded, opened his eyes, and jumped out of the pool, cupping his fist towards the young man. "Thank you, senior. I don't dare to be called a senior. All of this is just fate between you and me." "Fate," Su Yun muttered, then suddenly said, "Senior, I have a question. I wonder if Senior can answer it for me." "Go ahead and ask." "Senior, you said before that you escaped the calamity of the evil sword. Then why did the master of the tomb that you guarded not escape the calamity of the evil sword? Could it be that his strength is inferior to Senior's? Not as good as me? Hee, how is that possible? My strength is only at the peak of the god realm, but compared to him, I am still worlds apart. The reason why he died under the evil sword was not because he did not want to hide, but because he did not hide. Why? Because responsibility. The young man said solemnly. Responsibility? He has his responsibility and also has something that belongs to him. Do you know what the Tao is? The Tao is all-encompassing and difficult to explain. The way of the sword is the Tao. The way of the martial arts is also the Tao. But there's also a Tao of benevolence and righteousness. And there's also a Tao of cruelty and bloodlust. Everyone has their own Tao. If you want to explain what the Tao is, then the only answer should be that person, what kind of Tao he chose. Su Yin replied seriously. The young man nodded and said with a smile, Indeed, this question encompasses too many things, and there is no standard answer. Your understanding is very good, and the answer to your previous question is also in your answer. The reason why the person in the tomb died under the ominous sword was because he didn't hide. He chose his own path. That's all. Hearing that, Su Yin lowered his head and thought, All right, you should leave this place quickly. Although this place is beautiful, it is actually a place where the person in the tomb cultivated when he was alive. Even if it is me, it is not good to stay here for too long. I'm going to close this place. If another tomb robber comes, it will be troublesome. The young man laughed. Su Yin nodded his head, walked out of the house, crushed the teleportation token, and left. The young man was still standing in front of the hut. Although he did not say anything, Su Yin could vaguely guess. The young man's strength must be incomparably powerful, and the tomb he guarded must also be an extremely terrifying existence. The peak of the god realm? Perhaps. It was a brand new domain, but such a terrifying existence actually died under the evil sword. It was truly a pity. Su Yun was extremely surprised. He never thought that in this vast world there would be so many experts, and in the dead immortal domain, there would actually be such a strange person. Even the Heaven Destroyer Sword God cared about the tomb, which was enough to show that the strength of the person in the tomb should be stronger than the Heaven Destroyer Sword God. After returning to the encampment, Su Yun immediately began to cultivate in seclusion. Seeing that he had returned safely, everyone heaved a sigh of relief, especially Octagon Aniseed, Sword Ancestor, and the sect leader. After finding out that Su Yun had returned, they anxiously went to look for him, but Su Yun was in seclusion, and the few of them urgently wanted to know if Su Yun had obtained the Heaven Destroyer Sword, so they were all waiting at the entrance of the cultivation grounds. Seeing that Su Yun was in such a hurry to go into seclusion, one could guess that he must have had some unique fortuitous encounter in the dead immortal domain. In fact, Su Yun's understanding of the power of creation had reached a new height. However, what he was more concerned about was that young man. Who was that? 7 days later, Su Yun successfully came out of seclusion. The eye of creation was even stronger, and in his mind, a strand of divine power was born. It was extremely miraculous. This divine power was like a mirror hanging in his mind. Su Yun could use this power at will, but could not attack any matter or even physical body, but it could easily tear apart the soul. It directly affected the soul, and its power was extremely powerful. This was definitely not a mental attack, but it was countless times stronger than a mental attack. After coming out of seclusion, the people outside were already waiting. When they saw Su Yun coming out, they immediately surrounded him. Su Yun, is everything okay? Sword Ancestor quickly walked up and asked, Su Yun, did you have any fortuitous encounters in the dead, immortal domain? The sect leader could not help but speak up. Su Yun went into closed-door cultivation the moment he returned. He must have come into contact with something. Hearing that, Su Yun laughed bitterly. There are fortuitous encounters, but at least it's okay. I brought the Heaven Destroyer Sword back. What? You really got the Heaven Destroyer Sword? Sword Ancestor was stunned. The sect leader was rather excited and said anxiously, Su Yun, where is it? Quickly take it out and let me see. Heaven Destroyer Sword? It must be a very powerful weapon. Clipchamp looked at Su Yun in anticipation. Seizing this sword will definitely not be easy. I heard that after Big Brother went to the dead immortal domain, a large number of people from the immortal sects and scattered immortal experts rushed to the dead immortal domain. It seems like there is some incredible existence there, Su Luluo said. Su Yun laughed. He took out the Heaven Destroyer sword from the space bag. The moment the slender and bright sword appeared, everyone felt an inexplicable sense of palpitation. Heaven Destroyer sword. It really is the Heaven Destroyer sword. Sword Ancestor's eyes lit up. As a sword cultivator, he naturally loved divine swords. But a divine sword like the Heaven Destroyer sword was extremely intelligent and did not allow its owner to touch it, or else there would be a backlash. Everyone only dared to look at it from afar and did not dare to play with it. With this sword, I will definitely be able to save the demon saint. The sect leader laughed. The demon saint wants to save him, but we cannot be in a hurry. Su Yun has just obtained the Heaven Destroyer sword and still needs to consolidate the tacit understanding between him and the sword. We will prepare again, the sword ancestor said. The sect leader nodded, then took out a pitch-black pill and handed it over to Su Yun. Su Yun, this is the Devil Soul pill that I refined for you after you left. It can consolidate the connection between you and the Heaven Destroyer sword, allowing it to greatly increase the compatibility between you and it. Thank you, sect leader. No need to thank me. Everything you have done is for the sake of all living beings. If you really want to thank someone, it should be us thanking you. The sect leader laughed. All right, everyone, don't disturb Big Brother anymore. Let him cultivate properly. Su Luluo said. Everyone nodded and prepared to leave. Su Yun originally wanted to ask about the strange young man and the tomb in the dead immortal domain, but after thinking for a while, he gave up. Since that person was guarding there, he did not want to be disturbed, so it was better to let the matter go. But at this moment, Qin Qianlong suddenly walked in this direction quickly. Master, Qin Qianlong shouted anxiously. What's wrong? Su Yun asked. Qin Qianlong's expression was extremely ugly. He walked over and bowed to everyone, then said, Master, a disciple came to report, saying that there is an uproar outside. Everyone is saying that you have already obtained the Heaven Destroyer sword and obtained the inheritance of the Heaven Destroyer sword god. What? Su Yun frowned. His face suddenly darkened. It must be the people from the divine pedestal stage who spread the news. They brought people to the place where the Heaven Destroyer sword god was buried, but they did not see the Heaven Destroyer sword, so they suspected that I obtained it. Su Yun said in a deep voice, although he did not reveal his identity. But when he fought with the divine pedestal stage cultivator, he used the limitless sword arts. In the entire celestial realm, everyone knew that Su Yun was the successor of the sword ancestor and was proficient in the limitless sword arts. The Heaven Destroyer sword is a rare divine weapon. The appearance of the Heaven Destroyer sword will probably attract many experts. Su Yun, you must hide for a while. Do not reveal your edge. The sword ancestor said. Seize? I can seize it for a while, but can I seize it for a lifetime? I have to face what I have to face. Su Yun shook his head and laughed bitterly. And at this moment, outside the encampment, a muffled roar sounded. The divine pedestal stage disciple has come to pay his respects. May I ask if the Honorable Sex Lord Su Yun is here? Chapter 1458. He came so fast. Everyone exchanged glances with each other, and their expressions were unsightly. Don't worry. The people from the divine pedestal stage are only here to scout the way. Since they have spread the news, then they must be afraid of the heaven exterminating sword. So they hope that more people can participate and share the pressure. And now, they are here to see if their brother is strong enough. If their brother is strong, they will not dare to make a move so easily. If Big Brother is not strong enough for some reason and is unable to protect the heaven exterminating sword, I'm afraid they will attack without hesitation. Su Luluo said, Looks like I'm going to make a move. Su Yun said indifferently, Let's go take a look first. Everyone immediately walked out of the encampment, and at that moment, outside the encampment, there were more than 10 immortals with powerful auras. All of them were from the divine pedestal stage. Su Yun looked around and realized that Yuan He and Yuan Hong were also among them. That's him. Seeing Su Yun walk out, Yuan Hong immediately pointed at him and shouted, "The heaven exterminating sword must have been taken away by this person." Yuan He also said, hearing that the experts of the divine pedestal stage all looked at Su Yun, all of them with unfriendly expressions. An old woman with her hands behind her back flew out, looked at Su Yun and said, "Young lad, you are Su Yun, right? I've heard of your deeds. The immortal-slaying court, the god-slaying dragon clan, and even the allied forces formed by dozens of immortal sects were completely annihilated. You rising stars are truly terrifying." "Not bad, not bad." Although his words were filled with praise, his tone was extremely calm, giving off a feeling of arrogance and contempt, as though what Su Yun had done was not something earth-shattering. Of course, these people had heard of Su Yun, but Su Yun never knew about them. "Are you here for the heaven-exterminating sword?" Su Yun said indifferently. "That's right, Su Yun. Hand the heaven-exterminating sword over to us. We will not cause trouble for you. We will definitely turn around and leave." A divine object like the heaven-exterminating sword is not something an ordinary person can possess. If your strength is not enough, obtaining this divine object will only cause you endless trouble, so you should hand it over to us for safekeeping. What a dignified way of speaking. "What if I don't hand it over?" Su Yun asked. "Not?" The old woman shook her head. "You cannot withstand the fury of the spiritual pedestal, the fury of the divine altar." Su Yun sneered. "Back then, the divine dragon race also said the same thing to me. However, not only have I endured the wrath of the divine dragon race, the people of the divine dragon race cannot even withstand my wrath. Do you think that the divine dragon race can compare to our spiritual pedestal tier?" The old woman's yellow eyes flashed with a trace of coldness and said coldly, "Su Yun, we kindly advise you to hand over the heaven-exterminating sword, but we did not want the immortal world to lose such an outstanding talent. If you are stubborn and refuse to hand it over, then you will definitely regret your decision." "Regret? I never regret anything I do," Su Yun said solemnly. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifying killing intent suddenly arose in the air. "Reckless fool! Elder Tree, why waste your breath on this person? Kill him and snatch the heaven-exterminating sword." Yuan Hong said angrily, his gaze sweeping towards Su Yun. Seeing Su Luo and Hu Qianmei in the crowd, he was immediately shocked. The greed in his eyes was extremely obvious. He said sinisterly, "If we kill Su Yun, we can enslave these immortals, and at that time, my spiritual pedestal tier's power will increase again. Shameless. The immortal world is in such chaos because of you bunch of vermin." The Sword Ancestor snorted. "Sword Ancestor, long time no see, but your cultivation after all these years has not improved at all." Yuan said indifferently, "Realm does not represent everything. What I have experienced is my cultivation. You can't see my changes." The Sword Ancestor said coldly, We can spar later. After so many years, I also want to see how powerful the limitless sword arts that was famous in the immortal world is." Yuan said, "Then what's the point of wasting words? If you want to fight, then come." Su Yun waved his hand, and a large number of immortals rushed out of the encampment. All of them had heavy auras and were extremely terrifying. After the encampment was built under Su Lilua's management, the development of the encampment was very fast. With such a huge power of immortals, it was easy to obtain resources, and adding that after destroying the immortal court, Su Liluo had gathered more than half of the immortal court's resources, the immortals in the encampment did not lack any cultivation resources at all. So their cultivation speed was like flying, many times faster than the other immortal sects. And a group of immortals had already successfully entered the spirit god realm. Seeing the appearance of such a terrifying group of immortals, the people of the divine pedestal tensed up. They only had a dozen or so people. If they were to fight head-on, they would definitely suffer a huge loss. If the entire divine pedestal tier came out, they would not be afraid of Su Yun, but if they did that, it would be too risky. It was definitely not worth it to loosen the foundation of the divine pedestal tier for this sword. Su Yun, you are too impulsive. Although our divine pedestal tier will not attack your encampment, you must understand, unless your people do not leave the encampment, your lives are still in the hands of the divine pedestal tier. The old woman spoke again. But this sentence was already close to a threat. If Su Yun's people left the encampment, then it would be a piece of cake for the divine pedestal tier to kill them. Su Yun had a lot of people on his side, but only by sticking together would they have battle prowess. If they were scattered, they would only be normal immortals, and against a divine pedestal tier elite, it would be like striking a rock with an egg. Are you threatening me? Su Yun's face was as cold as ice. I'm only giving you a good suggestion. The old woman said indifferently. Then it looks like I should start a war with the divine pedestal tier. Su Yun said coldly. Start a war? Are you qualified? The old woman was also a little angry. Refusing a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. A motley crew. Do you really think we are the trash of the divine dragon race? If we want to destroy you, we can do it in the blink of an eye. Yuan also spoke. Then what are you still talking about? Su Yun directly leaped forward, rushed out of the encampment, and said coldly, since that's the case, then today I, Su Yun, announce that I will officially start a war with the divine pedestal tier. In a few days, I will bring all the immortals to visit your divine pedestal tier. Since your divine pedestal tier does not intend to let our people go, then let's fight to the death. When the old woman heard this, her expression instantly turned ugly. Su Yun, you dare! If all the immortals in the encampment were to rush to the divine pedestal tier, even if they could not defeat the divine pedestal tier, they would at least be able to consume a large portion of the divine pedestal tier's strength. If the divine pedestal tier's strength was damaged and the enemy took advantage of the situation, then the divine pedestal tier would be finished. When I destroyed the celestial court, the situation was even worse than now. Did I hesitate? Su Yun said coldly. Rather than being slowly killed by your people, why don't I take the initiative to attack? I will fight it out with you all. I also want to see if the heaven-exterminating sword in my hand can exterminate the heavens. The old woman, Yu and he, and the others were all a little regretful. They had long heard that Su Yun was an extremely extreme person. They had originally thought that by pressuring him, they would be able to obtain the heaven-exterminating sword, but they did not expect him to be completely enraged. If the two sides really fought, no matter what the outcome was, the divine pedestal tier was not willing to see it. The divine pedestal tier is arrogant and doesn't know what it means. And Su Yun, you overestimate yourself. An ant trying to shake a tree. This heaven-exterminating sword is neither the divine pedestal tier's nor Su Yun's. It should be given to me. At this moment, a long roar sounded out, and then a large number of immortals rushed over. The auras of these immortals were all terrifying, and most of them were at the peak of the spirit god realm. Among these immortals, there were the figures of Di Long and Di Qing. The people from the Di Ming immortal manor had also arrived. There were over 100 experts, far more than the people of the divine pedestal tier could compare to. Di Ba. Yuan He looked at a sturdy middle-aged man in the crowd and said in a deep voice, Yuan He, long time no see. In the dead immortal realm, my 2 children have been taken care of by you people of the divine pedestal tier. Di Ba snorted and said, the people of the Di Ming immortal manor lined up in a row, releasing their auras, overbearing beyond compare. Although the number of people on Su Yun's side was still very large, each of them had a kind of arrogance that looked down on the world, as if Su Yun's side was just a group of ants. Yuan He snorted, but didn't say anything. Di Ba's interest was not on the people of the divine pedestal tier. There were only so many people of the divine pedestal tier, and they were not a match for the people of the Di Ming immortal manor. Immediately, Di Ba looked toward Su Yun and said indifferently, You are Su Yun, right? I heard that you recently obtained the heaven-exterminating sword, and in addition to the rumors that you have a vicious sword in your hands, you are just an ant, and you actually obtained 2 rare divine weapons. I wonder what kind of luck you have. How about it? Are you going to obediently hand them over, or do I have to do it myself? Such arrogance, I think. You guys should just make a move. Su Yun snorted. He did not have any intention of discussing. It was one thing for the divine stage to want the heaven-exterminating sword, but the people from the Di-Ming immortal manor actually wanted the fierce sword. How could Su Yun give in? Reckless fool. Who do you think we, the Di-Ming celestial manor, are? Do you still want to challenge our Di-Ming celestial manor? You'd best hand it over now. Otherwise, when we start fighting, you won't even know how you died. Shouted Di Long. You think you're qualified to talk to me? A loser. Su Yun said coldly. Bastard, how dare you humiliate me? If you have the ability, come out and fight me. Di Long flew out and roared furiously. Afraid of you? Su Yun sneered and flew out. Di Long, get back. I'll fight him. Di Ba said solemnly. Uncle, are you afraid that I won't be able to win? He wields the Heaven Destroyer sword and is in the deification realm. You are no match for him. Your courage is commendable, but you cannot let your emotions affect your decisions. Although he is very strong, he is nothing in my eyes. Di Ba said indifferently. Strong confidence filled him. He could tell Su Yun's realm with a single glance, and was most likely in the deification realm. These existences were clearly stronger than the Great Immortal Court. So why did they allow the Great Immortal Court to act so presumptuously in the immortal world? Su Yun did not understand. For some reason, he felt that the immortal world was becoming more and more foreign to him. The things that he had come into contact with seemed to be the true immortal world. Chapter 1459. Although the people from the Di-Ming immortal manor looked extremely overbearing and impulsive, as a terrifying and powerful immortal sect in the immortal world, they were not a group of brainless people. Although Di Long was a talented young man from the younger generation of the Di-Ming immortal manor, compared to Su Yun, the difference in realm was too great, adding that Su Yun had the heaven-extinguishing sword and the ominous sword. Di Long had no chance of winning. Only a God realm expert like Di Ba could suppress him with his powerful cultivation. He's shameless. Di Long jumped out to challenge Su Yun, and now you say that Di Long is not strong enough and want to fight Su Yun for him. Then what about Di Long's arrogant words? Slapping his own face? Di Ba, you could be considered an older generation figure in the immortal world, yet you're bullying the younger generation here. Could it be that the Di-Ming immortal manor has reached the point where they have to rely on such methods to maintain their sect's reputation? How sad, the sword ancestor said coldly. His words are not polite at all. Di Long's strength is so low, yet he dares to challenge our lord. He is truly reckless. That's right. Look at his cowardly appearance. I wonder where he got the courage to jump in front of our lord. He is truly displaying his slight skill in front of an expert. If our lord really made a move, he would have been a dead man long ago. The people from the Di-Ming immortal manor are truly capable. Qin Xianlong, Kai Tian, and Wu Ming whispered to each other. Although they were discussing, their voices were intentionally loud, as though they were purposely saying it for Di Long to hear. Hearing that, Di Long was furious. His veins bulged. He wanted nothing more than to rush out and fight to the death with Su Yun. But since Di Ba did not allow it, there was nothing he could do. Su Yun stared coldly at the people from the Di-Ming immortal manor. He was not worried about the people from the Di-Ming immortal manor and the divine pedestal sect. Although the two immortal sects were extremely famous in the immortal world and were powerful, they did not dare to make a move against Su Yun. After all, they were all famous figures, and their every move was being watched by countless eyes. If they really fought with Su Yun, it would inevitably attract the attention of their enemies. Just that, this did not mean that Su Yun was fine, because the news of him obtaining the heaven-extinguishing sword had already spread, and before long, even more people would come to the encampment, and the people from the ancient Heaven Gods Council would probably come as well. In such a situation, the more people there were, the more chaos there would be. Once it was chaotic, the people from the spiritual pedestal realm or the Di-Ming celestial manor would have no scruples in their actions. He had to make a show of force and deter those who coveted the Heaven Destroyer sword. Di Long, since you want to challenge him, fine, I'll give you a chance. Fight on my behalf. At this moment, Di Ba suddenly spoke to Di Long. With that said, the people on the divine altar and Su Yun's side were all stunned. Although Di Long was strong, he was only at the peak of the origin void, while Su Yun was at the god-sealing realm and even held the heaven-exterminating sword in his hand. The reason why the old lady on the side of the divine pedestal had not made a move yet was because she was afraid of the might of the heaven-exterminating sword. But if the Di Ming immortal manner allowed Di Long to fight against Su Yun, wouldn't that be sending Di Long to his death? Many people began to speculate. Did Di Ba already have some method to allow Di Long to remain undefeated? Di Long, come here. Just then, Di Ba called out. Di Long walked over, only to see Di Long taking out a golden statue from somewhere. He crushed the statue and placed it in front of Di Long's forehead. The imprint of the statue immediately appeared on Di Long's forehead, and at the same time, his aura also rose crazily. Limit of the origin void. God's sealing limit. In the blink of an eye, Di Long's aura had already reached the peak of the god-sealing realm. What was that? It was actually so terrifying to be able to bring such a terrifying change to Di Long. The people of the divine altar were dumbstruck. The faces of the people on Su Yun's side also changed. They looked at the scene in shock. What a terrifying soul force. Inside that statue, there was an extremely terrifying soul force sealed. Di Ba, you actually used this kind of magic treasure. Sword Ancestor could not help but exclaim. No one expected that Di Ba would have such a method. This is the soul of our Di Ming immortal villa's ancestor. It can temporarily increase someone's strength. Since Su Yun wants to fight, how can my Di Ming immortal villa be weak? However, since it's a battle, we naturally need some bargaining chips. If we win, Su Yun, the heaven-extinguishing sword in your hands will belong to us. And if we lose, our Di Ming immortal villa will naturally retreat and will no longer harass you. Su Yun, what do you think? Di Ba said. Hearing that, Su Yun shook his head and said indifferently, Retreat? You will not retreat. Coming here, your goal is the heaven-extinguishing sword and the evil sword. How can you leave so easily? So if I win, there's no meaning in it. Then what do you plan to do? Di Ba said indifferently. Could it be that you want to avoid the battle? Humph, if that's the case, then don't blame our Di Ming immortal villa for forcing a battle. If Su Yun refused, the Di Ming immortal villa could use Su Yun's humiliation as an excuse to attack him. Avoid the battle? Although Su Yun, have not been in the immortal world for a long time, I have never avoided a battle. It's just that this bargaining chip should be changed. Su Yun pulled out the heaven-extinguishing sword. The mournful sword hiss instantly resounded through the world. The sword might and sword pressure swept out in all directions. The sword force was terrifying beyond compare. Everyone's gaze was deeply attracted by the sword. Su Yun pointed the sword at the people from the Di Ming immortal villa and said indifferently, Since your goal is my sword, then, let us fight to the death. If I win, then Di Long must die. And if I lose, then I will naturally die, and this heaven-extinguishing sword will also belong to you. Is that true? Di Ba was immediately overjoyed and anxiously said. It seemed like he was certain that Su Yun would die. With so many people here, how can I go back on my word? Su Yun said indifferently. Wait. When the people on the divine stage heard that, they could not sit still anymore. The old woman said, Little friend Su, if that's the case, my divine stage is willing to fight with you. If you win, my divine stage is willing to agree to any of your requests. If you lose, you must hand over the heaven-extinguishing sword. Although Su Yun was strong, in the eyes of the people from the great immortal sect, he was not that ridiculously strong. It was not difficult to defeat him. The people from the great immortal sect had many methods, and although killing a god realm cultivator was a bit troublesome, it was definitely not something that could not be done. Divine stage, don't be anxious. Let me take care of the Di Ming immortal villa first, Su Yun said indifferently. A trace of seriousness flashed past the old woman's eyes. Di Long's current cultivation was at the peak of the god realm. With this kind of strength, even she did not have the confidence to defeat him. If Su Yun were to fight him, would he really be able to win? Elder Tree, what should we do? Yuan Hong asked softly. When Su Yun is defeated, we will rush forward and take a space bag and the heaven extinguishing sword. After we take the things, we will leave. We must not let the heaven extinguishing sword fall into the hands of the Di Ming Immortal Villa. Otherwise, the Di Ming Immortal Villa will definitely grow, and in the future, our divine stage will face an even greater threat from the Di Ming Immortal Villa. The old woman said, "What if we don't get it?" Yuan asked in a low voice. "Then think of a way to restrain the people from the Di Ming Immortal Villa. I have already sent out the news. Not long after, our divine stage experts will arrive. At that time, everything will be under our control." All right. The eyes of the people in the divine stage lit up. They looked towards Su Yun and Di Long. All of them were already prepared. In their eyes, Su Yun had no chance of winning this battle. After all, the current Di Long was practically defying the heavens. His cultivation had already reached a level where they could only look up to him. Di Long's entire body released a faint white light. The mark on his forehead was incomparably holy. He was like a god, looking down at Su Yun. Every move he made seemed to shake the cycle of reincarnation, twisting the universe. He seemed to have already become the ruler of the world. "Su Yun, you're not my match. The current me is not someone you can fight against. If you hand over the heaven-extinguishing sword and the heaven-extinguishing sword now, maybe you can still live. But if you continue to be stubborn, I believe that the power bestowed upon me by my ancestor will tell you how foolish your decision is." Di Long stared at Su Yun. His voice came out. His tone was arrogant, as if he was a supreme god. Using treasures to temporarily increase one's cultivation is not considered powerful. I believe in the sword in my hand. Although I have just obtained it, as a swordsman, I will not fear it, nor will I retreat. If you want to fight, then let us fight to our heart's content. Why waste your breath? All right. Di Long's voice became cold. Seeing Su Yun's determination, his heart was filled with rage, killing intent exploding from his eyes. His body pressed down, directly rushing toward Su Yun. Su Yun was not afraid. With a leap, he raised the heaven-extinguishing sword and rushed towards Di Long. "Su Yun, be careful." The sword ancestor and the others all looked on worriedly. Peak of the conferred god realm. In the past, this was an existence that they could not even touch, but now, such a terrifying existence had appeared in front of them. Humph! Seems like the heavens are going to bestow the heaven-extinguishing sword to my Di Ming Immortal Villa today, Di Ba said indifferently. Su Yun directly clashed with Di Long. The terrifying heaven-extinguishing sword fiercely slashed onto the power of creation that Di Long had released. In truth, there were no changes in his body, but his cultivation realm had increased by so much, all because of the mark on his forehead. All of the eyes of creation, meridian of creation, and the power of creation were all stored in the mark. So, Su Yun was not only fighting against a peak of the god realm, but also a peak of the origin deity realm. After the first clash, Su Yun was actually forced back a few steps. The heaven-extinguishing sword was also trembling incessantly, its strength trembling crazily, like a lone leaf in a storm. It was completely unable to resist. "Is that all you have?" Di Long's eyes were filled with excitement and passion. This incomparable power made him wild with joy. Thinking back to when he was humiliated by Su Yun in the Dead Immortal Domain, and the matter of Di Qing being held hostage, his heart was filled with uncontrollable rage, and his attacks were extremely ruthless. Every move was fatal. When Su Yun fought with Di Long, he was immediately at a disadvantage, and the situation was not looking good. Chapter 1460. Di Long had obtained the power of his ancestor's spirit. He was extremely powerful. His attacks were like a violent storm. The void seemed to be burning. It was extremely terrifying. And although Su Yun held onto the heaven-exterminating sword, he did not take the initiative to attack, but only defended. Even though you've entered the Ascendant God Realm, you don't know how powerful and mysterious the Ascendant God Realm is. My ancestor's soul told me everything. Now, I will let you know how terrifying the Di Ming Celestial Manor is. Di Long's palm flickered with red, white, and blue light. Other than good fortune energy, there were two other kinds of energy. It was the power of the void and the power of the world. The power that Ascendant Realm cultivators could use was no longer limited to their physical strength. They could borrow the power of the heavens and earth to obtain more terrifying power. Their means were completely connected to the heavens and earth. Everything in the heavens and earth was under their control. The three types of terrifying god power fused together. Its power was astonishing, like a spinning golden crow. It smashed toward Su Yun. Sword screen. Su Yun formed a seal with one hand, and a circle of light gray chi cover formed, smashing over, but after touching it for a while, it directly shattered. You can't resist my power. Di Long howled with laughter. The eyes of the onlookers sparkled. Di Long's strength was undeniable. The ancestral soul was something that Di Ming Immortal Manor had prepared for Di Long a long time ago. The ancestral soul contained a lot of ancestral memories. Once it was used, even if the effect was gone, Di Long would still gain a lot of benefits. His cultivation base would increase tremendously, and it wouldn't take long for him to break through. Really? Su Yun shouted coldly. He raised his finger and shot out a chi sword, smashing into the god power. And in an instant, the god power collapsed. Di Long's expression stiffened. In the end, the borrowed power is not your own power. Rather than saying that I am fighting with you, it would be better to say that I am fighting with your ancestors. What are you so pleased with? Su Yun snorted. What do you know? This is my power. I'll kill you myself. Kill. Di Long was infuriated by Su Yun's words. His entire body blossomed with a terrifying light aura, like a blazing sun. The terrifying creation power around him seemed to condense in his substance, causing the surrounding immortals to tremble in fear. How terrifying! Is this the strength of an ascendant state cultivator? The void was about to rot. Heaven and earth became dusky. The Emperor Dragon slaughtered its way over again, the power of natural luck merging into the crazy winds, attacking this place. Wherever it passed, all life force disappeared. Immortals who came into contact with it directly lost their lives. You're not the only one who can use the power of creation. Su Yun spun his body. The energy of the vein of fortune in his body frantically converged towards his palm, finally accumulating on the heaven-exterminating sword in his hand, causing the sword to tremble. The Sky Destroyer's sword bloomed with a cold light that could pierce through heaven and earth. The sword light flashed, and the sword will was awe-inspiring. The power of the divine sword was completely released. At this moment, people seemed to have a feeling that their eyes were going to be pierced when they looked at the Sky Destroyer's sword. Terrifying, as expected of a godly sword. Just this sword might alone was not something that an ordinary immortal weapon could contend against. Was this the Celestial Destroyer's sword? Although Di Long was strong, Su Yun was nimble and agile. His dodging was extremely high. If he could not touch Su Yun, no matter how fierce Di Long's methods were, it would be useless. Do you only know how to dodge? Di Long roared, clearly infuriated by Su Yun's constant dodging. The current him felt as if he had a body full of energy, but it was hitting cotton with nowhere to vent it. But Su Yun was not the least bit affected by his words and continued to dodge. Although your current realm is strong, I said that this is not your strength. Even if you're at the peak of the God realm, so what? Your mental state, your thoughts, your battle techniques have not reached this level. Your peak God realm strength is just an empty shell, strong on the outside but weak on the inside. If I want to kill you, it will be as easy as flipping my hand. Su Yun said coldly. Let's see who will kill who. Di Long's eyes suddenly blossomed with yin and yang light. Immediately following that, he disappeared and quickly appeared in front of Su Yun. Die. He extended his palm. The terrifying palm seemed to split space. Scram! Su Yun roared, releasing sword force and sword might at the same time. The terrifying chi field was like a giant god's hand, fiercely smashing towards Di Long. Di Long's body was directly sent flying, looking extremely miserable. What? Seeing this, Di Ba, who was far away, was incomparably shocked. This power, is it sword force? It's so powerful to actually possess dual sword force. Did the heaven exterminating sword give it to him? The old woman could not help but ask. The heaven exterminating sword was originally filled with sword intent, adding the sword force and sword might's effect. The impact it produced surpassed ordinary early-stage god realm existences. It was not strange for it to have such an effect. Chi! Chi! The terrifying sword force actually formed a storm, continuously tearing space apart. With Su Yun as the center, the surrounding area actually distorted. It was extremely terrifying. Bastard! Dilong was infuriated. He rushed forward again. Su Yun looked at Dilong calmly. He still chose to retreat and did not take the initiative to attack. It was not that he did not want to take the initiative to attack, but that the current battle was his first battle with the Heaven Exterminating Sword. The Heaven Exterminating Sword was different from the Twin Moon Sword, the Death Sword, and the Lotus Star Sword. Its spirituality was definitely abundant, or it could be said that it was no longer a sword, but a living being. If he wanted to unleash the full power of the Heaven Exterminating Sword, he had to completely communicate with the Heaven Exterminating Sword. At the moment, he was unable to completely grasp the power of the Heaven Exterminating Sword through the sword's seal. But following Dilong's continuous pressure, he could already feel the fighting intent of the Heaven Exterminating Sword. But this was not strong enough. Boom! The void suddenly exploded. Dilong had actually used the power of creation to detonate the profound energy. In the void, a gigantic divine dragon appeared. This divine dragon was incomparably illusory, but its entire body was filled with a terrifying explosive power. Everywhere it passed, the destructive aura would explode. Su Yun covered his entire body with the power of creation, but very quickly, he realized that the Heaven Exterminating Sword's fighting intent had weakened a bit. That's not right. I shouldn't defend. Su Yun suddenly thought back to when he first controlled the Heaven Exterminating Sword. After releasing the ominous sword Qi, the power of the Heaven Exterminating Sword had actually reached its peak. It was not afraid of the ominous sword's terrifying sword Qi in the slightest, and instead counterattacked with the shocking power of the Heaven Exterminating Sword. The Heaven Exterminating Sword was a sword that would rather break than bend. Going against the current, the more dangerous the enemy was, the more terrifying the battle intent it revealed. On the contrary, if it was in a peaceful state, it would not have any sword force, and the sword might of the Heaven Exterminating Sword would also completely disappear. Thinking about it, Su Yun removed the power of creation, gave up on defense, and approached the terrifying dragon of destruction. Today, I will use this to test my sword. Su Yun thought coldly, and immediately pulled out his sword. As expected, when he got close to the terrifying dragon, the power of the sword on the Heaven Exterminating Sword was like a raging fire. Crazily jumping up, the entire sword body trembled crazily. The snow-white sword body also became as red as flames. The scorching heat suddenly rose. It was not the heat brought by the flames, but the heat brought by the destructive aura. The shocking change caused Ba, the old lady, and the others to widen their eyes. Su Yun leaped up and casually swung the divine sword in his hand. Roar! Sword howl! A terrifying sword howl actually came out from the Heaven Exterminating Sword. It was deterring any existence that challenged it. It wanted to use its strongest method to destroy the opponent. The destructive power released by the sword blade tore towards the divine dragon with an imposing manner that could destroy 10,000 worlds. In the blink of an eye, the divine dragon shattered into pieces and was completely annihilated. So terrifying, everyone's hearts were palpitating with lingering fear. The sword descended, but it seemed to have landed in everyone's hearts. The sword ancestor also opened his eyes wide, looking at the flabbergasted sword. This sword seemed to want to destroy the heavens. Is this the power of the Heaven Exterminating Sword? Everyone muttered. No. No matter how strong the Heaven Exterminating Sword is, if the user is incompetent, he will not be able to unleash its power. Only when the user has a deep understanding of the way of the sword will he be able to unleash its full power. Su Yun is currently trying to control the Heaven Exterminating Sword. The sword ancestor said, Seeing such a breathtaking scene, even Di Long was a little fearful. However, he was not afraid. If the peak of the God Realm were to lose to the early stage of the God Realm, what face would his Di Ming immortal manner have left? Today you must die. I want you to know just how big the gap between us is. Di Long roared and rushed forward. The moment he moved, the power of heaven and earth gathered on his body. An incomparable, profound energy swept over. Mixed with his power of creation, it struck towards Su Yun with an aura that could destroy everything. This strike was enough to flatten Su Yun's entire encampment. This attack was powerful enough to kill any ascendant god initial stage cultivator. This strike was filled with all the power of the mark on Di Long's forehead. He wanted Su Yun to die. In front of countless pairs of eyes, Su Yun would completely die. Ah! Di Long roared. His eyes were blood red, his expression sinister, as if he had gone mad. However, Su Yun was still very calm on the other side. Gap? Indeed, the gap between you and me is very big. Su Yun said indifferently. Suddenly, his arm moved, the Heaven Destroyer's sword trembled, and a terrifying sword chi cut through space, destroying countless of good fortune chi, and fiercely rushed towards the Emperor Tornado. There was nothing that the swift and fierce sword chi couldn't cut through. Di Long was stunned. He could feel that the chi he released was being destroyed by the sword chi. Crap! The old woman couldn't help but say, Di Long is going to lose. The heaven exterminating sword is indeed powerful, but even so, Di Long is not Su Yun's opponent. Yuan Hong couldn't help but say, although the heaven exterminating sword is powerful, if the user is not strong, it is useless. Su Yun is also a peerless talent, a monster. If he doesn't die, he will definitely achieve great things in the future. Yuan he looked deeply at Su Yun. But at this moment of life and death, a miraculous light screen suddenly appeared in front of the sword chi. Dong! The sword chi destroyed the light screen, but the sword chi itself was much weaker. This light screen wasn't created by Di Long. Everyone looked to the side, only to see Di Ba in the distance, raising his hand, chi lingering around his fingertips. He actually made a move. Chapter 1461. Shameless. We agreed on a duel, but you actually interfered. Qin Qianlong and the rest rushed out and shouted angrily. But Di Ba did not care about Qin Qianlong and the rest. He continued to look at Su Yun with his hands behind his back. Seeing this, the people in the encampment were all enraged. The people from the Di Ming Immortal Villa had ignored the rules. They had long since disregarded the rules of the duel, and even more so, did not put Su Yun and the rest in their eyes. With Di Ba doing this, even if Qin Qianlong and the rest were angry, what could they do? There were not many experts here, and none of them could contend against Di Ba. Even if the sword ancestor appeared, he would not be Di Ba's match. So what was there for him to be afraid of? Di Long did not stop. He knocked away the sword force that was not powerful enough and rushed toward Su Yun. Su Yun frowned. He dodged, then stared at Di Ba and said coldly, You did it on purpose. The duel is not over yet. Little friend Su Yun, continue. Di Ba said indifferently. His face did not change at all. It was as if the attack just now had not happened at all. The people from the Di Ming Immortal Villa all looked at Su Yun and the rest in ridicule. Even if they did that, no one would dare to do anything. As for the divine pedestal, they had been watching coldly from the sidelines. It was impossible for them to get involved at this time, and as for standing up for Su Yun, that was even more impossible. Very good. Su Yun suddenly laughed, his smile becoming somewhat sinister. Since you are ignoring the rules, then I will not waste any more time. Do you really think that if you protect him, he will not die? Hearing that, Di Ba's face changed. He suddenly felt that something was wrong. What do you mean? Just then, Su Yun suddenly threw the heaven-extinguishing sword out, directly thrusting towards Di Long. The terrifying might instantly swept out, like a lotus flower forming. It was extremely terrifying. The space around Di Long distorted once again. This is... The sword ancestor frowned. The heaven-extinguishing sword released a sword aura. Layers upon layers of sword images flew out, With Ba as the center, it continuously rotated. These sword images were actually the heaven-extinguishing sword chi, the terrifying destructive aura mixed with the profound meaning of the sword. It was extremely terrifying. Every single sword image was like an angry dragon revolving around Long and roaring. Long clenched his teeth and used all his good fortune energy to charge out. But as soon as he touched the sword image, he was knocked back. It was completely sealed, like a cage made of swords. You're only strong because of the realm your ancestor gave you. Apart from that, you're useless. Your state of mind, battle techniques, and battle intent are all inferior to mine. Where did you get the confidence to kill me? Now, I'll tell you what's called a gap. Su Yun leaped up, his entire body releasing a golden light. The power of creation was like an electric current, accumulating on the Heaven Destroyer sword. The sword was raised high up, the blade pointing straight at the sky. The world actually dimmed. The sun and moon did not dare to compete with it. A terrifying power was released from the sword. This sword was unstoppable. Seeing that, Ba's face changed. He bellowed, "Su Yun, stop. We, Diming Celestial Manor, have lost. Stop. Isn't it too late to admit defeat now? Moreover, was there any chance of surrendering or admitting defeat now? You have already broken the rules. This is no longer a battle between me and Long, but a battle between me and your Diming Celestial Manor. Today, Long must die." Su Yun snorted and directly rushed towards Long. The berserk killing intent swept towards Long. Hearing that, Ba was filled with regret. He had broken the rules and had sealed off his last path of retreat. Kill me? Do you really think it's that easy? Long was completely enraged by Su Yun's words. He roared and rushed towards Su Yun. The terrifying power of creation poured out from the imprint on his forehead, transforming into a gigantic fist in front of him, smashing forward. However, this move of his did not unleash the power of a peak god realm, or rather, Long was unable to unleash the power of a peak god realm. Everything was over. Su Yun looked coldly. The Heaven Destroyer sword slashed forward. The opponent's terrifying power had completely infuriated the Heaven Destroyer sword. The sword edge that could not calm down slashed forward with an aura that could exterminate everything. Long's power of creation was completely cleaved apart. There was no obstruction at all. Long's eyes were wide open, looking at the incoming sword edge, his heart thumping nonstop. Difference. This was the difference. Looking at the terrifying sword, Long finally understood Su Yun's true strength. "No!" he roared, but it was too late. The sword edge descended, directly tearing his body apart. His soul did not even have time to escape. It was engulfed by the terrifying, destructive power of the Heaven Destroyer sword. Ba and the other experts from the Ming Immortal Manor were prepared to rush forward to save him, but they were stopped by Sword Ancestor and the others. Although they were stronger than Sword Ancestor and the others, it was impossible to repel them in a short period of time, so they could only watch as Long fell. Ba's eyes were red, his anger soaring to the sky. As a rare genius of the Ming Immortal Manor, Long should have been the hope of the Immortal Manor, but today he had died here. If he were to return to the Immortal Manor, how would he, Ba, explain to the people of the Immortal Manor? How would he explain to Long's father? Kill him, kill Su Yun. Ba had completely lost his mind. He roared in anger, and the 100 people from the Ming Immortal Manor rushed forward. "Kill. Do you really think you can do whatever you want here?" Wei Ming's voice came out from the encampment. Countless immortals rushed out from the encampment, and the magic tools at the encampment also released a terrifying light. A large number of light beams shot over, fiercely striking the bodies of the people from the Ming Immortal Manor. Ordinary immortals might not be of much use to these powerful cultivators, but when hundreds and thousands of immortals attacked at the same time, the power was extremely terrifying, especially the spirit profound god experts that Su Luluo had spent a large amount of money to nurture. Their destructive power was extremely terrifying. The moment the people from the Ming Immortal Manor rushed forward, they were killed by the terrifying and dense spells. The rest of the people's faces changed, and their speed slowed down. The people of the Di Ming immortal manor thought highly of themselves and did not put Su Yun, who was a rising star, in their eyes at all. They did not care about these immortal sects that seemed to be pieced together at the last minute. But today they understood that these immortals were not as simple as they thought. Di Ba carried an arrogant aura, ignoring everyone else. He took the lead and pounced towards Su Yun. But just at that moment, another figure came from the side and actually attacked Su Yun together with Di Ba. It was the old lady of the divine pedestal. The divine altar finally could not hold it in any longer. Su Yun possessed the heaven-extinguishing sword. She did not think that she could completely defeat Su Yun. Since that was the case, she might as well kill Su Yun together with the people from the Di Ming immortal manor and seize the heaven-extinguishing sword. Despicable. Sword Ancestor secretly snorted. He rushed towards Su Yun, planning to support him, but just then, Su Yun suddenly spoke out. Master Ancestor, you don't have to come over. The two of them can't kill me. You just need to wipe out the people from the Di Ming immortal manor and the divine altar for me. Since the divine altar has chosen to be my enemy, then there is no need to be polite. Everyone listen up. Use all your strength to kill Yuan Hong. I do not want him to leave this place alive. Yes, sir. The immortals in the encampment roared. Kai Tian and Faceless directly rushed towards Yuan Hong. Countless immortals were holding Yuan He back, preventing him from saving Yuan Hong. Su Yun, if you dare touch Yuan Hong, I guarantee that all of you will be buried with him. The old woman screamed. She was also anxious. She did not expect Su Yun to be so decisive. Buried with you? If you want to kill me, do you think I should be polite to you? Since we've already shed all pretense of cordiality, what's the point of caring so much? If you want to fight, then let's fight to the death. If you're afraid, then leave your life behind. I, Su Yun, will accompany you to the end. Su Yun raised his sword and slashed. The sword chi surged. It was unstoppable. Even Di Ba's power of creation was unable to block the Heaven Destroyer sword's blade. You're just someone who has just stepped into the God realm, yet you dare to be so arrogant. Do you think I'm Di Long? Watch me destroy you. The old woman roared, her eyes suddenly releasing a strange light. It was divine light. The sky around Su Yun immediately turned golden. Following that, the golden sky quickly shrank, and a sense of oppression assaulted Su Yun's heart, and in an extremely short period of time, it rose up, surrounding him like a dumpling wrapped around a dumpling. Break! Su Yun slashed out. The Heaven Destroyer sword was like a hot knife through butter. It actually broke the light. Di Ming Divine Palm. The exposed Di Ba rushed over, unleashing a palm strike. It was actually the absolute art of the Di Ming immortal manor. The palm shot out a gigantic palm print. The imprint seemed to have a life of its own. It bypassed Su Yun's heavy attacks and smashed towards his body. The strength of the Di Ming Divine Palm did not lie in its power, but in its accuracy. As long as it was unleashed, it would not be blocked, even if the opponent had absolute defense. The palm print was sometimes big and sometimes small. It avoided the heavy sword chi and finally struck Su Yun's chest. Su Yun retreated a few steps, while the old lady in Di Ba's eyes revealed a cold light and rushed forward crazily. Die! The old woman roared. A white cane appeared in her hand. The cane descended, and wherever it passed, the space would crack and distort crazily. The terrifying power of the profound meaning rippled. If struck, even a god realm existence would die in one strike. But just then, Su Yun suddenly extended his hand out and grabbing a person out of nowhere and directly threw him towards the old woman's cane. The old woman was startled. Looking at the figure, her heart jumped, and she anxiously retracted her move. It turned out that in that moment of life and death, Su Yun had actually used the sky plucking hand to grab Yuan Hong, who was in the crowd. What a terrifying method, to be able to drag him over in an instant. It was an extremely exquisite spatial method. Yuan Hong also did not react. When he felt the terrifying aura around him, he was scared silly. The battle between the existences of the God realm was not something he could interfere in. But just then, he suddenly felt a wave of pain in his body. Following that, his entire body was instantly torn apart. A sharp sword filled with destructive aura pierced through his body, piercing towards the old woman. Yuan Hong dead. Chapter 1462. No! The old woman let out a heart-wrenching roar. Her bark-like face twisted. She stared at Su Yun with resentment and anger, and fiercely attacked. I want you to die without a burial ground. Sword. Su Yun's arm trembled, and the heaven-extinguishing sword body rumbled forward. The old woman clenched her teeth and activated all of the power of creation in her body, transforming into a gigantic pincer that tightly clamped onto the heaven-extinguishing sword body. A good chance. Elder Tree, hold on. Wait for me to destroy him. A cold light flashed in Diba's eyes. The fusion of the power of creation with his own profound technique actually caused the space to tremble. Su Yun only felt the blood in his body churning nonstop, the blood chi surging upwards. His throat felt as though blood was about to spurt out. His soul was shaken by Diba's terrifying attack. He raised his head and looked at Diba, feeling the power of heaven and earth that was coming from his body. The surrounding people all felt the shock and were so shocked that they couldn't help but retreat. This will of heaven and earth was enough to destroy their will to fight, let alone face it. Although Su Yun was in the conferred God realm, the conferred God realm was also divided into strong and weak. He had just stepped into the conferred God realm. So, no matter how astonishing his understanding of the power of creation was, it was impossible for him to compare to the old woman and Diba, and the advantage of the heaven-extinguishing sword was that it was impossible for him to close the gap between Su Yun and the two of them. Whether or not he could withstand this attack was still unknown. At least, no one was optimistic about Su Yun. You're finished, the old woman said coldly. The power of creation in her body was activated once again. The gravity around her increased. The 10,000 times gravity suddenly acted on Su Yun's body, causing him to be unable to move. Diba's attack rumbled, and the distorted space seemed to be foretelling Su Yun's fate. However, Diba and the old woman did not know that under such circumstances, the power of the heaven-extinguishing sword would reach its peak. The more exciting it was, the stronger the power of the heaven-extinguishing sword became. At this point, the heaven-extinguishing sword seemed to have gone crazy. The crazily trembling sword body actually broke the old woman's pincer. The old woman felt her arms go numb. The power of creation in her entire body was in turmoil, rampaging around, and her chi was in chaos. She clenched her teeth, wanting to persevere, but her strength loosened, causing her arm to bounce away, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Wong, the heaven-extinguishing sword struggled free. Oh no! Diba's expression changed greatly. He wanted to retract his move, but it was too late. The terrifying Heaven Destroyer sword gave off a cold, killing aura and slashed out. Emperor controls heaven and earth. Diba changed his stance and let out a furious roar. A gigantic heaven and earth shield appeared in front of him. The terrifying Heaven Destroyer sword slammed onto the shield, pausing for a few breaths before shattering the shield. Diba was sent flying backward, spitting out mouthfuls of blood. Su Yun gasped for breath as he looked at the two of them. At this moment, he felt that all the meridian of fortune in his body was about to melt. He had activated his chi too quickly, to the point that he was a little exhausted. But at this moment, he absolutely couldn't relax in the slightest, and he couldn't let go of even the slightest chance. Otherwise, he would be the one to die. His eyes were orange-red and his blood was boiling. Like the heaven-destroying sword, he sank into madness. Even if his realm was inferior to the other parties, he would still fight bravely without any hesitation. When there was nothing else he could do, the only thing he could rely on was momentum and courage. He believed in the Heaven Destroyer sword in his hand. Courting death. Seeing Su Yun rushing over, the old lady and Diba were completely enraged by his arrogance. An early-stage God Realm cultivator dared to challenge two God Realm experts? He simply didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. But the terrifying sword also made them afraid. Courting death? Are you talking about the two of you? Su Yun snorted. Also, you have to understand, I am not fighting alone. With that said, the two of them were stunned. But in the next second, countless chi swords suddenly surrounded the two of them, like a storm, trapping them in the center. Limitless sword arts. The two of them were shocked. The sword ancestor was here. Su Yun seized the opportunity. Holding onto the Heaven Destroyer sword, he actually withstood the terrifying chi swords and slashed towards Di-Ba. Di-Ba anxiously dodged. The chi swords continued to spin. They were extremely dense and terrifying. But these chi swords were not fatal. If he was hit by the Heaven Destroyer sword, he would definitely die. He gritted his teeth and did not dare to hesitate. He directly rushed out of the chi swords with the little power of creation. As an expert of the origin deity realm, the sword ancestor cultivated with the sword. His attacks were terrifying, and even an existence of the god realm could not ignore his destruction. Di-Ba crashed out of the chi sword layer, and his entire body was immediately covered in sword scars. He was dripping with blood and looked terrifying. Especially on his chest, a large piece of flesh had been cut off, revealing the vein of creation and his internal organs. Di-Ba clenched his teeth and said, "The thief has a divine weapon. It is not easy to wipe them out. Retreat first, inform the sect, and send experts here to kill the thief. Retreat." With that said, Di-Ba wanted to escape. "You think you can escape?" Su Yun bellowed and chased after him. The other immortals also surrounded him and used techniques to prevent Di-Ba from escaping. Seeing that, Di-Ba had nowhere to retreat to. His expression was extremely ugly. He turned around, only to see Su Yun slashing at him with his sword, sweeping everything in its path. An unparalleled sword intent instantly wrapped around his body, causing him to be unable to activate his defense in time. Puchi! Su Yun's sword pierced through Di-Ba's chest, and one of his vein of creation was directly cut off. The power of creation in his body rampaged, causing him to spit out a few mouthfuls of blood, and was already on the verge of collapse. Su Yun took the opportunity and rushed forward again. Armor of the Black Tortoise. Di-Ba activated his magic treasure, and a black tortoise shell appeared in front of him, wanting to block Su Yun's attack. But the grade of the black tortoise shell was obviously not as strong as the Heaven Destroyer sword, and was actually shattered by the sword. Mixed Heaven Chains. Di-Ba hurriedly activated his technique again, and a golden chain flew out from his sleeves, binding Su Yun. Limitless Sword Arts. Su Yun pointed with one hand, and the sword chi flew out, completely tearing the chain apart. Seeing that, Di-Ba's face turned ashen. He knew that he could no longer stop Su Yun. Stop! Su Yun, don't kill me. As long as you let me go, the grudge between you and the Di Ming immortal manor can be written off. Di-Ba gasped for breath as he shouted in panic. At this time, he no longer had any other methods. If he wanted to kill Su Yun, it was simply a fantasy. The current Di-Ba, even escaping, was extremely difficult. "Do you think I'm a 3-year-old child?" Su Yun said coldly. Di-Ba was startled. In truth, he did not believe Su Yun's words, but he had no other choice. He clenched his teeth and continued, "If you don't kill me, I'm willing to give all the treasures on me to you. That pile of scrap metal is not of a high grade, so why should I care? Furthermore, if I kill you, would the treasures in your space bag run away?" Su Yun said coldly, and then slashed at Di-Ba. "No. If you kill me, the Di Ming immortal manor will definitely destroy you." "Definitely." Di-Ba roared again and again. "Unfortunately, you won't be able to see it." Su Yun's face was sinister. The Heaven Destroyer's sword slashed down, instantly splitting Di-Ba's body into two, and even his soul was completely torn apart. With Di-Ba's death, the people of the Di Ming immortal manor were trembling in fear. They wanted to retreat, but there were too many immortals around. There were hundreds of thousands of them. Even if their cultivation was stronger than these immortals, they would not be able to kill them all in a short period of time. If they could not escape, they would be trapped in a tight encirclement and die a miserable death. The sword ancestor was still dragging the old lady. After Su Yun killed Di-Ba, he did not give up and turned to rush towards the old lady. Seeing that Di-Ba had been killed, The old lady was shocked. An Ascendant State powerhouse had fallen just like that, and the impact of this was unbelievable to her. She had already lost her will to fight. Even if she joined hands with Ba, she would not be able to kill this person. Su Yun, this matter will not end. The Ming Immortal Manor will not let you go, and the Divine Pedestal will not let you go. Sooner or later, you will regret what you have done today. Sooner or later. The old woman shouted angrily. She took out a token from somewhere and was about to crush it. This was an escape magic treasure, similar to the teleportation token. Regret? I have never regretted what I have done. Su Yun bellowed. He grabbed towards the old lady with his palm. The old lady was caught off guard. She was tightly grabbed by Su Yun. The heaven-extinguishing sword slashed towards the old lady. The old lady's heart jumped. She immediately crushed the order badge. She was immediately enveloped by a terrifying spatial aura. She was about to escape, but just as she was escaping, a miserable scream sounded out. The old lady's arm was directly cut off. The power of creation flowed into her body through the blade, mixed with the power of the heaven-extinguishing sword intent. It was enough to make it impossible for the old lady to recover her arm in a short period of time. With a flash of light, the old lady had already escaped, and the remaining people of the Divine Pedestal and the Ming Immortal Manor were unable to resist the encirclement and annihilation of Su Yun and the rest, leaving only Yuan He struggling to hold on. Su Yun gasped for breath and slowly flew towards Yuan He, who was surrounded. At the moment, Yuan He was already covered in wounds. He never thought that the people on Su Yun's side would be so strong, and they even had a large number of magic tools attacking him, making it impossible for him to defend. Take him down, Su Yun said. Su Yun, do you think that you can do whatever you want just because you have the heaven-extinguishing sword? The news has already spread throughout the entire immortal world, and you will have to face countless troubles in the future. Yuan He forced back a wave of immortals, stared at Su Yun, and said sinisterly, "Then why do you want to seize the heaven-extinguishing sword? Aren't you afraid of trouble?" Su Yun said indifferently, "The strength of our Divine Pedestal is stronger than yours. Even if the heaven-extinguishing sword is in our hands, no one would dare to have any ideas about our Divine Pedestal, but you are different. You are not worthy of this sword. This sword will send all of you to your graves." Yuan He roared. Su Yun stared coldly at Yuan He and said, "In this world there is no such thing as being worthy or not. You think that your Divine Pedestal is strong, so you underestimate us, but you don't know that your life is already in my hands, and back then, the Immortal Court was also as arrogant as your Divine Pedestal. But what happened in the end? Yuan He, don't worry. This sword will always be with me. If anyone wants to snatch it, they will have to rely on their own ability." With that, Su Yun waved his hand, and everyone rushed forward. Yuan He's 4 limbs were immediately cut off. The vein of creation was destroyed. He had already lost his fighting strength and was immediately taken down. Chapter 1463. When Yuan He was locked up, Wei Ming immediately went to use the great exquisite technique to seize Yuan He's memories. Yuan He was also an important figure in the Divine Pedestal, so his memories were naturally very precious. Through these memories, Su Yun had a deep understanding of the Divine Pedestal. There were many experts in the Divine Pedestal, and according to Yuan He's memories, there were 5 existences in the God Realm, and there were dozens of returning void experts. When he found out about this, Su Yun only regained his senses after a long while. The power of the Divine Pedestal was far stronger than any of the forces he knew, not to mention the Divine Dragon race and the Divine Eagle race. Even the Immortal Court back then was nothing more than a child in front of the Divine Pedestal. However, through these memories, Su Yun understood that the strongest in the immortal world was not the Immortal Court. On the contrary, the Immortal Court was just a clown in front of many true experts. The Immortal Court racked his brains to occupy the resources of the immortal world for his own cultivation. Actually, all of this was on the premise that he did not touch the interests of the truly powerful forces. The Immortal Court had only conquered some weak sects, and the laws of the immortal world that he had proclaimed were only aimed at these small and medium-sized sections. Those terrifying super sects would not interfere in such matters, because to them, it was very boring. Yes, it was very boring. For example, the resources that the immortal court occupied were dispensable to them, and they did not care. On the contrary, if they were happy, they only needed to send out a few God realm existences to destroy the immortal court, but they did not do so. The immortal court was a very smart person, and at the same time, he was also a very difficult person to deal with. He knew that the immortal court was not a match for these super sects, so every year, he would take the initiative to pay tribute to these super sects in order to obtain their indulgence. These immortal sects obtained benefits, even though it was not much, but they did not care about it. How the immortal world developed was not their concern. What they cared about was more and more abundant cultivation resources. Those cultivation resources that even the immortal court could not touch. The immortal world was vast, to the point where it was hard to imagine. And in the past, Su Yun had thought that no immortals had touched upon the areas, but in reality, they were all being explored by these powerful immortals. For example, in the dead immortal domain, there were peak spirit god existences everywhere, and returning void experts would occasionally appear. However, Su Yun was extremely curious as to what role the Eternal Heavenly Gods Council was playing in this operation. Compared to the likes of the Divine Pedestal Stage and Di Ming's Celestial Villa, who was stronger and who was weaker. However, there was one thing that Yuan he was right about. As long as the Heaven Destroyer sword was in his hands, there would be no end to the troubles. Experts would constantly come knocking on his door unless he was willing to hand over the Heaven Destroyer sword. But if he handed over the Heaven Destroyer sword, how could he save the Devil Saint? Su Yun took a deep breath. He stayed in the training grounds for 2 days, and without waiting for his injuries to completely recover, he immediately went to find the sect leader, planning to save the Devil Saint. However, when he went to save the Devil Saint, Su Yun also made a request, which was that only Su Yun and the sect leader would go. The rest of the great demons had to stay in the encampment, and this time, the great demons had to appear. Su Yun did not know when he would be able to return, and if the people from the Divine Pedestal Stage and the Di Ming Immortal Villa came looking for him, it would be impossible for Qin Qianlong and the others to block them. Although doing so would attract the great immortals of the immortal world, Su Yun could not care less. If these people could not resist, everyone in the encampment would be slaughtered by the people from the Divine Pedestal Stage and the Di Ming Immortal Villa. If that was the case, then it would be meaningless for Su Yun to save the Devil Saint. After thinking about it again and again, the sect leader finally agreed to Su Yun's request. In fact, Su Yun had also considered it for a long time, but he still chose this decision. If the Devil Saint could be successfully rescued, then the great demons of the true Devil realm would no longer need to hide. The Devil Saint was so powerful, and was even the spiritual leader of the true Devil realm. If he reappeared, the immortal world would definitely be shocked, and if the great immortals wanted to touch the people of the true Devil realm, they would naturally have to think twice. Su Yun did not hesitate. On the 3rd day, he left the encampment with the sect leader. Before leaving, Wei Ming gave the 2 of them 2 teleportation tokens, allowing them to directly return to the encampment. With this order badge, Su Yun could be at ease. Senior Brother Devil Saint's location should be at the western end of the immortal world. You may not know that area, but many old people in the immortal world should know it clearly. Because of the outbreak of that war, many great immortals and demons fell there, so it is called the Graveyard of Immortals and Demons. That place is filled with evil chi, and ordinary immortals can't enter easily. The true Devil Sect leader said, then looked at Su Yun and said, Demon Lord, since you have obtained the Heaven Destroyer sword, you should hide your chi and the Divine Sword's chi. If anyone notices, we will only attract trouble. Su Yun nodded his head. He took out the Demon Lord's bone mask from the space bag and wore it on his face, concealing his aura and disguising himself as a robe. At the moment, he was just an immortal wearing a gray robe and a strange mask, and his strength was only at the early stage of the Origin Void Realm. Even the true Devil Sect leader was disguised as a middle-aged man in a green robe. The 2 of them sped along the way, and after 3 days of work, they arrived at the entrance of the graveyard of immortals and devils. The graveyard of immortals and devils was not a cloud land, but an extremely wide, floating island. It was extremely strange, but after the great battle, the immortal island had become a desolate island and was extremely desolate. However, what surprised the two of them was that there were actually quite a few immortals at the entrance. Most of them were at the peak of the spirit god realm, and there were also quite a few existences at the origin void realm. Those at the middle and peak of the origin void realm were definitely not rare. Since the peak of the origin void realm had appeared, then the existence of the god realm would not be a legend. The two of them looked at each other and saw the doubt in each other's eyes. This is the graveyard of immortals and devils. The evil aura is terrifying without the origin void realm. It is impossible to withstand it. Although this is the battlefield where the great immortals and great devils once fought, there are countless treasures and opportunities, but you still have to be alive to go there. Why are there so many immortals here? The true devil sect leader said, "Just ask and you'll know." Su Yun said, and then walked towards the nearest immortal. "May I ask this fellow immortal, what happened here? Why are there so many immortals gathered here?" Su Yun asked politely. The man was leaning on a rock and dozing off. When he heard the voice, he opened his eyes and looked at Su Yun, then snorted and said, "Fellow in the early stage of the origin void, do you still know the rules?" With that, he raised his hand and rubbed it. Su Yun frowned. How could he not understand what the immortal meant? However, time was of the essence. He did not want to waste any more time with this person. So he took out a bag of 100,000 immortal coins and handed it over. The immortal waited for a moment, his face revealing a look of disdain and disdain. He directly threw the bag towards Su Yun's face and scolded, "You dog, you want to send me away with such a small amount of money? Give me 10 million immortal coins. I'm just asking you such a simple question, and you want me to ask 10 million immortal coins? I think it's better if I don't ask." Su Yun snorted, turned around, and planned to ask someone else. But that person instantly landed in front of Su Yun and directly pressed his palm on his shoulder. "Did I let you go? Stop right there. If you don't hand over the money today, don't even think about leaving this place." The man stared at Su Yun with a sinister expression and shouted. Su Yun frowned. He looked around, only to see that the surrounding immortals did not stand up to stop him, but looked over as though they were watching a show, and many of them had expressions of schadenfreude. "It seems like we're new faces, so we were slaughtered like lambs by others." The true devil sect leader used his chi to transmit his voice to Su Yun. "That's right. I originally wanted to keep the peace, but my patience has become the reason why others are so arrogant." Su Yun said indifferently. He then extended his hand and grabbed the man's neck. That person was startled, but before he could say anything, he felt the hand on his neck getting tighter and tighter, the force getting stronger and stronger, and then his entire body was lifted up. Scram to the side. Su Yun casually threw him, and the man flew out. When the surrounding people saw this, they were all dumbstruck. That person was at least at the early stage of the origin void stage. How could he be thrown away by Su Yun so casually? That person was also stunned. He covered his neck, coughed twice, and stood up, looked at Su Yun, who was slowly walking away, and then looked at the surrounding immortals who were looking at him, and felt that he had lost all face and was unable to restrain his anger. He directly rushed over and punched Su Yun. "Bastard! Stay here. You're courting death." Su Yun's eyes flashed with killing intent. He turned and punched the immortal. Bang! The immortal's arm was directly shattered, and he was sent flying. He fell to the ground, half dead, and his cultivation was crippled. Hiss! The sounds of people gasping could be heard from all around. How terrifying to actually cripple the cultivation of someone of the same realm with a single punch. Just how terrifying was this fellow's strength? Was he really an early-stage origin void cultivator? Someone come. Someone come. The person who fell to the ground spat out blood as he groaned and roared. He knew that he had met an iron plate today, but his cultivation had been crippled, causing his heart to be filled with rage. No matter what, he had to kill this fellow, It made him understand who was in charge of this place. Following this roar, many immortals rushed out from the crowd and surrounded Su Yun. The scene became somewhat chaotic. The sect leader had been standing by the side like an outsider the entire time. He knew that Su Yun could deal with all of this. What happened? At this moment, a clear voice floated in from outside the crowd. Immediately after, the crowd automatically parted, and a group of people walked over. Young Master Lingxi. Young Master Lingxi is actually here. Look, that woman is so beautiful. That's the Seven Emotions Fairy. She is the Holy Maiden of the Seven Emotions Palace, the next Palace Master of the Seven Emotions Palace. Why is she together with young Master Lingxi? Young Master Lingxi's cultivation is high and his talent is peerless. It is said that when he was at the peak of the Spirit Profound God, he had already killed an existence at the early stage of the Origin Void. How terrifying is he? I wonder what his cultivation level is now and what his strength is like. That's right. The crowd immediately became lively as they discussed animatedly. Countless pairs of envious, worshipful, and appreciative eyes looked towards the person who was walking over. Chapter 1464. The Spirit Rhinoceros Tree on the Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain. The Spirit Rhinoceros Man under the Spirit Rhinoceros Tree. Young Master Spirit Rhinoceros is indeed extraordinary. One of the immortals beside Su Yun looked at the person walking over and could not help but sigh. Young Master Spirit Rhinoceros? Su Yun frowned. He had heard of this name before. He was an immortal who walked down from the Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain. He had not cultivated for long, but his strength had already reached an extremely terrifying realm. He was a rare genius in the immortal world, especially the battle that made him famous under the circumstances of being injured. With the strength of the peak spirit god, he forcefully killed an existence of the Origin Void realm. This kind of challenge was not something that everyone could do. The Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain was extremely mysterious. The entire Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain was like a huge maze. If one did not obtain the permission of the owner of the Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain, they would definitely be lost inside, never to come out. And the Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain was also an extremely sacred place in the immortal world. It was said that the owner of the Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain had already reached the realm of opening up heaven and earth and controlling reincarnation, and young Master Spirit Rhinoceros was one of his direct disciples, and also his favorite disciple. Young Master. What surprised Su Yun was that many of the people surrounding him were young Master Spirit Rhinoceros' subordinates. Li Jiao, what's going on? What are you doing? Young Master Spirit Rhinoceros said. With her by his side, his actions were extremely serious, and his tone was also somewhat serious, giving off a feeling that he looked at everything meticulously. The man called Li Jia immediately cupped his fists and said, reporting to young Master, we were ordered to wait here for young Master and escort young Master to the graveyard of immortals and demons. Unexpectedly, we were provoked by this man. Zhang's son got into a fight with him, and unexpectedly, this man injured Zhang's son and crippled his cultivation. Young Master, please uphold justice for us. Young Master, please uphold justice for us. The surrounding people shouted. These people were only immortals who were waiting for orders. They listened to young Master Spirit Rhinoceros, so they should also be people from the Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain. However, there were still many immortals around who did not greet young Master Spirit Rhinoceros. From this, it could be seen that other than the Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain, there were many other powers here. Su Yun snorted. He glanced at the surrounding immortals. No one spoke up for him. He knew that these immortals did not dare to offend the people of Spirit Rhino Mountain, and immediately said, you guys really know how to stir up trouble. I'm just a newcomer and don't understand this place. I wanted to ask for some basic information, but you guys saw that I was an unfamiliar face and wanted to extort 10 million Celeste from me. I didn't agree, so you guys attacked me. You guys didn't mention this kind of domineering and unreasonable behavior, but instead slandered me for provoking you guys. I'm just an early-stage void returning realm cultivator. With that said, the surrounding people started to whisper. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Li Jia Zhang Sun, and the rest were bullying the newcomers again. It was not the first time they had done such a thing, but these people were all following young Master Ling Shi, and this time they had received orders to wait for orders the surrounding immortals knew. So even if they knew right from wrong, they did not dare make sound. After all, they were young Master Ling Shi's men. The Grand Master had been watching from the side the entire time. No one had expected things to turn out like this. "You're spouting nonsense. Young Master, please uphold justice for us." Li Jia shouted angrily at Su Yun, and then shouted loudly, with a wronged look. Su Yun frowned, but did not say a word. Young Master Ling Shi glanced at Li Jia and the others, then looked at Su Yun and the others, thought for a moment, then looked at the person beside him, and said with a smile, "Fairy, please wait a moment. After I take care of the matters here, we will go to the graveyard of immortals and devils. I hope it can be resolved quickly." Seven Emotions Fairy said expressionlessly. "Don't worry, it won't take too long." Young Master Ling Shi laughed. With so many people watching, even though young Master Ling Shi did not care about Zhang Sun's life, nor did he care about Su Yun, this matter concerned his reputation. No matter what, he had to stand up and handle it, and he had to handle it perfectly. "How should I address you, fellow immortal?" Young Master Ling Shi asked with a smile. "Su Yun." "Su Yun? You have the same name as the arrogant Su Yun who killed the Grand Immortal Judge and became a new supreme expert. However, your strength is so weak, so you can't be him." Young Master Ling Shi shook his head. Although his words were very polite, the arrogance in his words was very obvious. Su Yun felt a burst of displeasure in his heart, but in the eyes of the surrounding immortals, this was a very normal thing. There was no other reason. With young Master Ling Shi's identity and strength, it was already giving face to this guy by paying attention to him. Why was there a need to be polite? "Are you very strong?" Su Yun asked solemnly. "How dare you? You dare to speak to my young master like that? Are you courting death? My young master will definitely enter the God realm in the future. If I want to kill you, it's just a matter of a finger." A guard at the side glared at Su Yun, shouted loudly, and pounced toward Su Yun. However, this guard was only in the middle stage of the void returning stage. No matter how terrifying his aura was, it could not shake him. Su Yun raised his head and looked at the guard, but his eyes shot out a sharp sword force. The guard's body trembled, his face turned pale, and he retreated again and again, his body trembling uncontrollably. One imposing manner. It's a pity that it's useless. Young Master Ling Shi sensed Su Yun's imposing manner, but did not take it to heart. He said indifferently, "I don't know who is right and who is wrong in this matter, but neither side should be able to produce any evidence, right? Can you prove that Zhang Sun and the others first bullied and extorted you, and forced you to take out the celestial coins?" Everyone around saw it. "What proof do you need?" Su Yun said indifferently. "Everyone around? Did anyone around see it?" Young Master Ling Shi raised his head and looked around. However, the surrounding people did not make a sound. Seeing that, Su Yun immediately understood that these people were all afraid of young Master Ling Shi. Zhang Sun was young Master Ling Shi's subordinate, and if he did such a thing, young Master Ling Shi would not be able to keep his face. In fact, young Master Ling Shi himself knew what kind of trash Zhang Sun, Li Jia, and the others were, but his reputation was more important than an early-stage void returning stage fellow. Young Master Ling Shi glanced at Su Yun, the corner of his mouth raised into a faint sneer, and then said loudly, "Everyone, what Li Jia said just now, is it true? This person provoked Zhang Sun and the others, and even injured Zhang Sun. I want to know if there is such a thing." "Yes, young master, what Li Jia said is true. This bastard is so arrogant. He provoked Zhang Sun the moment he arrived, saying that he wanted Zhang Sun to bring him into the graveyard of immortals and devils, and wanted Zhang Sun to hand over all his treasures to him. Zhang Sun did not agree, and was crippled by him. Yes, young master, this person is so despicable. He is simply despicable and shameless. He deserves to be killed. Young master, if this person is left alive, he will be a parasite to the immortal world. It would be better to kill him and get rid of the evil for the immortal world." "That's right. Young master, kill this person." Voices rang out all around, and then more and more voices rang out, becoming extremely concentrated. Hearing that, Su Yun's expression became even colder. I am just one person, and I am unfamiliar with this place. Yet you all slander me for killing people and stealing treasures. There are so many people here. Would I act so recklessly? Such a despicable and childish excuse, and you all have the nerve to say it. If this matter were to spread, wouldn't people laugh their heads off? Su Yun snorted. I don't care about that. I only know that you injured my people, humiliated me, and even damaged the image of the people of the immortal world. No matter what, this young master will punish you today. Young Master Lingxi said indifferently. Are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure you don't want to investigate and give justice to everyone? Su Yun asked. Young Master Lingxi looked at Su Yun, and seeing the look in his eyes, he frowned and snorted and said, Do I need a despicable ant like you to teach me how to do things? Kneel! Kneel! The guards around him shouted, but Su Yun did not move. Young Master, it's getting late. We still have things to do. Have you finished dealing with the matters here? At this time, the Seven Emotions Fairy also spoke up. Obviously, she did not want young Master Lingxi to waste too much time on Su Yun, and this could be considered as urging him. Fairy must be anxious from waiting? A mere ant naturally won't take up our precious time. Let's enter the graveyard of immortals and demons. Young Master Lingxi said with a smile. His voice was extremely gentle to her, and on Su Yun's side, he naturally did not need to worry anymore. Since he had already confirmed that it was Su Yun's fault, the rest would naturally be left to these people to handle. You two, take care of him. The rest of you, follow me into the graveyard of immortals and demons. Young Master Lingxi said indifferently, not caring about this person at all. Yes. The two guards nodded, and then walked towards Su Yun. Fairy, this way, please. Young Master Lingxi smiled, and made a gesture of invitation to the Seven Emotions Fairy. The Seven Emotions Fairy was still expressionless as she walked inside. The group of people left just like that, leaving behind two guards in the middle stage of the origin stage to deal with Su Yun. These two were young Master Lingxi's personal guards and could be considered experts. Leaving them behind to deal with Su Yun was naturally foolproof. The surrounding immortals all revealed expressions of silence towards Su Yun. It was not good to offend anyone, but to offend the people of Lingxi Mountain, wasn't this courting death? However, they did not care about Su Yun's death. Some people stayed behind to watch the show, while others did not care about it and directly left. This kind of thing happened countless times in the immortal world every day. No matter who it was, even if they thought that they were strong, they still had to be careful with their words and actions when they were outside, because no one knew if the other party was stronger than them. Wait! Just then, Su Yun suddenly shouted. His voice was mixed with a terrifying power of creation, spreading in all directions. The surrounding immortals were all trembling. The two guards who were close to Su Yun were also trembling. It was extremely terrifying. Young Master Lingxi and the Seven Emotions Fairy who were leaving were also shocked by Su Yun's roar, and behind them, they saw Su Yun staring at them coldly. Chapter 1465. Young Master Lingxi's brows twitched. He felt that Su Yun did not seem to be convinced. He glanced at the two guards and said solemnly, Quickly take care of him. We still have important matters to attend to. He did not want to be disturbed by this fellow. Yes. The two guards regained their senses and hurriedly replied, then rushed towards Su Yun angrily, the terrifying divine power sweeping towards his body. Hurry up and submit. A loud shout rang out. However, it was unable to move his body in the slightest. Su Yun stood there without moving at all, and instead stared coldly at the two guards. You're courting death. A cold shout came out from Su Yun's mouth. He suddenly raised his hand, and a flash of sword chi light instantly flashed in front of everyone's eyes. Before anyone could react to what had happened, they saw the two guards rushing towards Su Yun suddenly stop in their tracks. Very quickly, the two of them fell to the ground with two thuds. When young Master Lingxi heard the commotion behind him, he frowned. Why was there such a huge commotion? He turned his head to look at Su Yun and was immediately astonished. His footsteps also suddenly stopped. The two mid-stage returning void experts were already dead. What? The people of the Spirit Rhino Mountain were all stunned, especially Li Jia and the rest. Seeing Su Yun's terrifying strength, they trembled and secretly cursed Zhang Sun for being blind. To actually provoke such an iron plate, it was likely that after this matter was resolved, they would also be punished by the young Master Spirit Rhino. After all, they had lost another two middle-stage origin void existences. Bastard! Young Master Lingxi was completely enraged. He stared at Su Yun and bellowed, "Do you know what you're doing?" Of course. Su Yun was not afraid at all. "You are openly going against the Spirit Rhino Mountain. You will die a miserable death." A cold thread emerged. "How laughable. You all want to kill me, yet I'm still indifferent? Furthermore, since you all want me dead, what else do I have to be afraid of?" Su Yun laughed coldly. Since the other party wanted him dead, he had no other choice but to retaliate. "I will let you know how laughable your methods are." Young Master Lingxi sneered. "Zhang Miao, take care of him." "Yes, young master." A middle-aged man at the side nodded and walked toward Su Yun. This person was not simple. He possessed the strength of the peak of the returning void realm, and his aura was very terrifying. Such an expert could easily kill two people in the middle stage of the returning void realm. Young Master Lingxi had sent him out alone to deal with Su Yun because he valued his ability. But at this moment, the Seven Emotions Fairy suddenly said in a cold voice, "Why waste time? Since this person can kill two people in the intermediate stage of the Void of Returning, his strength is not simple. Send everyone and finish him off as soon as possible. We have wasted enough time. My patience is limited. If we can't go, then forget it. I still have a lot of things to do." Seven Emotions Fairy's charming little face was full of disgust. She was very disgusted with this matter. "Since Fairy has spoken, then I won't play with this guy anymore." Young Master Lingxi said coldly, "Everyone attack. Kill this person. Dig out his soul. I want to refine it into an artifact and give it to Fairy." "Yes, young master." The crowd shouted and rushed forward. How vicious. To think that he would steal someone's soul to forge an artifact. Seeing that the Fairy did not object to it, it was obvious that she had tacitly approved of young Master Lingxi's actions. "Since that's the case, I won't hold back either." Su Yun snorted coldly. He then raised his hand, directly accumulating a sharp sword chi. He rushed towards the middle-aged man who was the first to rush over. Terrifying sword chi rubbed against the void, causing the void to tremble violently. A large number of explosions rang out, and a destructive aura blasted towards these people like roaring waves. How is this possible? The middle-aged man's eyes trembled. He didn't dare to believe the terrifying sword chi he sensed. He hurriedly tried to block, but the sword chi destroyed everything in its path. Before his defense could even be formed, it collapsed like a collapsing wall. The sword chi pierced through his chest, and the middle-aged man directly fell to the ground dead. One move. The peak of the origin deity realm died tragically. Everyone was flabbergasted, their hearts palpitating with fear, and those mountain spirit rhinoceros people who were rushing toward Su Yun felt their souls tremble. How could they have known that this early-stage origin void realm person was actually so terrifying? He disguised his cultivation. He disguised his cultivation. A roar rang out. This guy isn't in existence from the returning void at all. To be able to instantly kill someone at the peak of the returning void in one move, could it be God's sealing realm? As the sound of his voice faded, everyone was shocked. Young Master Lingxi and the Seven Emotions Fairy were so shocked that their scalps went numb. God's sealing realm. A God sealing realm expert had actually appeared here. Who is he? What is he doing here? Young Master Lingxi felt his entire body go cold. Suddenly, the ant in front of him had shed his disguise and turned into a God sealing realm cultivator. This kind of impact was unimaginable. However, Su Yun was not going to be polite. With a leap, his fingers flicked randomly, and the sword chi was like an arrow, piercing towards the people of Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain. The terrifying sword chi was like a shooting star shuttling through the air. In the blink of an eye, The sword chi had pierced through their bodies, wiping away their life force. One by one, their corpses fell to the ground, and even their souls couldn't escape, as they had already been crushed by the sword chi. All dead. It's your turn. Su Yun turned and stared coldly at the crowd around him. He remembered all the people who had instigated the people of Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain to kill him, especially Li Jia. He was so scared that he immediately ran away. He had offended a God-sealing realm expert, and based on the current situation, even young Master Lingxi would not be able to protect him. Can you escape? Su Yun grabbed the air, and Li Jia, who had escaped 1,000 miles away, was immediately grabbed back, and with a casual squeeze, Li Jia was actually crushed to death. This terrifying force caused people's scalps to explode. Don't kill me. Master, please don't kill me. Seeing that there was no hope of escaping, the others immediately knelt down and begged Su Yun for mercy. Why didn't any of you stand up for me when I was threatened by the people of Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain? If all of you had just shut your mouths and watched from the side, you wouldn't have lost your lives. Su Yun said indifferently. He did not show the slightest bit of mercy. The sword chi rippled, and the heads of these people were immediately separated from their bodies, and they died miserably. In the blink of an eye, young Master Lingxi had become a commander without an army. All the people related to him had died miserably, and the remaining immortals who had been watching anxiously retreated, afraid that Su Yun would kill them as well. However, Su Yun was clear about gratitude and grudges. Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain had offended him, so he only targeted Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain. He could not be bothered to make a move on the others. After killing Li Jia and the others, Su Yun directly walked towards young Master Lingxi. What are you doing? Young Master Lingxi frowned and said in a deep voice, Could it be that you still want to kill me? What? I can't kill you? Su Yun coldly snorted. You want to kill me? Why can't I kill you? Fellow immortal, I did not know your identity before and have offended you. Now that you have killed so many of my people, why don't we let this matter go and forget about it? Young Master Lingxi said, as if he wanted to shake hands with Su Yun. You know my identity? Young Master Lingxi hesitated for a moment, then said in a low voice, I don't know. You only think that I am in the God-sealing realm. Do you really know my identity? What a joke. If my cultivation was weak, would you choose to let me go? Would you choose to let go of what happened just now? You won't. Since that's the case, why should I let it go? Su Yun walked towards young Master Lingxi step by step, his killing intent gradually revealed. Young Master Lingxi's face was ugly. There were so many immortals watching, but he was actually threatened by this person, and he did not even have the ability to refute. The God-sealing realm was indeed powerful, but he was a member of the Spirit Rhinoceros Mountain, and his status was illustrious. Normally, even if he met a God-sealing realm existence, he would give him some face, but this person did not care about his status at all. Enough. Young Master Lingxi has already made a concession. Why must you be so overbearing? Do you really think we're afraid of you? Just then, the Seven Emotions Fairy suddenly shouted angrily, her tone extremely cold. Su Yun stared at the Seven Emotions Fairy and said, I will also settle your debt. Do you know who we are? If you provoke us, I can guarantee that you won't be able to stay in the immortal world. The Seven Emotions Fairy shouted coldly. Her expression was especially arrogant. Although her cultivation could not compare to Su Yun, she did not put him in her eyes at all. The Holy Maiden of the Seven Emotions Palace was practically the next palace master of the Seven Emotions Palace. In time, the Seven Emotions Fairy would also become a supreme expert of the immortal world, and sooner or later, she would enter the God-sealing realm. I'm tired of your constant threats. Su Yun shook his head and actually rushed over, a sword chi flying towards young Master Lingxi's head. There was no hesitation in his actions at all. Everyone was shocked, and young Master Lingxi was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He gritted his teeth and activated his divine power to block it. But how could divine power be a match for the power of creation? With a bang sound, young Master Lingxi's divine power was directly penetrated, and the sword chi's remaining power smashed onto his body, directly blasting his chest into a bloody mess. Damn it! Young Master Lingxi knew that he was not a match for him. Even if he joined forces with the Seven Emotions Fairy, he would not be able to defeat this existence of the God-sealing realm. He immediately took out a stone with patterns on it and crushed it. His body was instantly enveloped by a terrifying spatial aura, and he actually escaped. Su Yun slashed with his sword, but the grade of the stone was not low, and the teleportation speed was very fast. It was much stronger than the teleportation imprint of the old woman of the divine pedestal stage. Before the sword chi could cut through, young Master Lingxi had already disappeared. You will die without a burial place, I promise. Young Master Lingxi's sinister words still lingered in the air. Su Yun did not pay attention to him, and instead turned to stare at the Seven Emotions Fairy, his eyes filled with killing intent. Next, it's your turn. Is that so? The Seven Emotions Fairy was not afraid at all. She took out a bronze mirror from somewhere and directly poured her divine power into it. It was also the aura of space. Was she planning to escape? No. The aura of space that leaked out from the bronze mirror did not envelop the Seven Emotions Fairy. Instead, it continued to leak out. A supreme expert walked out through the bronze mirror. Chapter 1466. Crash. The bronze mirror flashed for a moment, and a middle-aged woman dressed in a slender jade robe walked out. The woman was still charming, and her face was beautiful. Especially her figure. It was extremely hot, and her unique temperament made every man who looked at her unable to move their eyes away. The strongest technique of the Seven Emotions Palace was the art of charm. It was said that when cultivated to the extreme, one could control another person's mind and even their soul. It was terrifying to the extreme. Every frown and smile would cause others to fall into a trance and sink into their charm. Su Yun, be careful. This person is very powerful. The true devil sect leader walked over and said indifferently. Hearing that, Su Yun nodded. The noblewoman glanced around, then looked at the Seven Emotions Fairy next to her and said, Your Excellency Saintess, I wonder why you called me here. There's no need to say anymore. Kill this person first, then I'll explain everything to you. The Seven Emotions Fairy said coldly. Originally, she had planned to use young Master Lingxi's Heart of Lingxi to search for treasures in the graveyard of immortals and demons. Rumor had it that the graveyard of immortals and demons had grown an immortal demon Bodhi. Eating one would allow one to gain enlightenment from a divine being, elevate one's soul, and greatly increase one's cultivation. If one was at a bottleneck, one could break through the bottleneck and step into a higher cultivation. She already had the strength of the peak of the Origin Void Realm, but to step into the God-sealing realm, she had to have a fortuitous encounter. Some immortals spent their entire lives wandering around the peak of the Origin Void Realm, unable to advance any further, and the Seven Emotions Fairy could not wait. If she only cultivated like this, even if she entered the God-sealing realm, it would be 10,000 years or even longer. As the Holy Maiden of the Seven Emotions Palace, she could not wait. The Immortal Devil Graveyard was the place where the most immortals and devils died during the Great War of Immortals and Devils. The Immortal Devil Chi here was especially strong, and in certain specific places, there would be Immortal Devil Bodhi. However, if there was no magic treasure to lock onto the location of the Bodhi, it would be extremely difficult to find it in this huge Immortal Devil Graveyard. The Seven Emotions Fairy was already impatient, but she did not want Su Yun to ruin her plans. Even young Master Lingxi had been beaten away. How could she endure it? The lady seemed to be listening to the Seven Emotions Fairy's orders. Hearing her voice, she nodded and walked toward Su Yun. With a step, her body became illusory, and her spirit also started to tremble. He didn't ask if it was right or wrong, and only listened to orders. Su Yun knew that this guy was not simple. He was probably in the Ascended God Realm. Although I don't know who you are, you will die for offending my Seven Emotions Palace. The lady bellowed. With a flip of her palm, a seven-petal illusion flower appeared beneath Su Yun. Illusory flower tribulation see, he my will seal. The power of creation surged out from the petals like spider silk, binding towards Su Yun, but did not bind his hands and feet, but directly sealed his soul. What a terrifying method to forcefully seal one's soul. Once one's soul was sealed, one's would be greatly weakened. In battle, any attack would be slower by a beat. Attacking one's soul before attacking one's body was truly not simple. Su Yun thought coldly. He did not dare to be careless. He gathered his sword chi and slashed towards the lady. However, the lady was like a spirit bird. She was extremely agile. In the air, she attacked Su Yun a few times. The terrifying power of creation ruthlessly struck towards Su Yun. Su Yun hastily dodged, and at this time, the Seven Emotions Fairy also rushed forward. "I'll help you. Kill." The Seven Emotions Fairy shouted angrily. She slapped out with her palm, her divine power twisting. But before it could even get close to Su Yun, it was dispersed by a terrifying sword intent. The difference between divine power and the power of creation was too great. The terrifying sword intent instantly filled the Seven Emotions Fairy's entire body, causing her to break out in a cold sweat. "Kill me? You die first." Su Yun bellowed. He gave up on counterattacking the lady, turned around, pulled out the double moon sword, and slashed towards the Seven Emotions Fairy. The terrifying sword body shook the void. The power of creation on the sword body seemed to have fused with the most ancient power, shaking the sky, tearing the earth, and slashing towards the Seven Emotions Fairy with an unstoppable force. "Holy Maiden, be careful!" The lady roared and instantly rushed in front of the Seven Emotions Fairy. She raised her hands and activated the power of creation, condensing an aura to block the sword. But her movements were too hasty, and the aura she produced was not sufficient. When the sword fell, it was as if the sky had collapsed. The terrifying force caused the entire desolate island to tremble. The lady's aura became even more unstable, and she spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing that, the Seven Emotions Fairy was shocked and angry. She originally wanted to help the lady, but she didn't want to help. Looking at Su Yun's cold face, the more she thought about it, the angrier she became, and the killing intent in her heart became stronger and stronger. "I won't let you live." The Seven Emotions Fairy was completely enraged. She immediately took out a fiery red paper crane from her space bag and threw it at Su Yun. "Lady Holy Maiden, why waste this thing?" When the lady saw this, her eyes were filled with shock. This was a defensive item that the Palace Master of the Seven Emotions Palace had bestowed to the Seven Emotions Fairy. It could only be used in times of danger, but she never thought that the Seven Emotions Holy Maiden would even use this thing in order to kill Su Yun. "If I don't kill this person, I won't rest." The Seven Emotions Fairy said angrily. "What a good won't rest. Then I will slaughter you today." Su Yun bellowed coldly. The fiery red paper crane suddenly exploded in the air, transforming into tens of millions of gigantic cranes that were covered in flames. These cranes danced wildly in the sky, and the terrifying flames seemed to want to burn the immortal island. All the immortals on the immortal island were engulfed by the flames of the cranes, and all of them screamed miserably. Even the existences of the origin deity realm could not last for a few seconds in the flames, and even their souls were turned into ashes. The destructive power of these cranes was terrifying. In the blink of an eye, countless immortals had died. How could the remaining immortals dare to linger in the graveyard of immortals and devils? All of them fled in a hurry, panicking out of fear. Su Yun was not feeling well either. The terrifying flames had already wrapped around him. "Divine weapon!" The true devil sect leader walked over from afar and said in a low voice. Such a treasure must have been bestowed to the Seven Emotions Fairy by the people of the Seven Emotions Palace for self-defense. I never thought that in order to kill me, she would use such a method. Since that's the case, I don't need to be polite anymore. The battle had already escalated to a life and death battle, so both sides naturally had no scruples. Su Yun kept the dual moon sword, activated the power of creation, and rushed towards the Seven Emotions Fairy. Cremation! Seven Emotions Fairy roared, and countless immortal cranes attacked him, surrounding him tightly like dumplings. Die! Su Yun's face turned sinister. He suddenly pulled out his sword. A cold light flashed past. The destructive aura suddenly rose, actually extinguishing the terrifying flames around him, and all the cranes that surrounded Su Yun disappeared. Stop! The noble lady rushed in front of Su Yun, the terrifying power of creation striking his shoulder, but in the next second, a terrifying sword appeared in front of her with a buzzing sound. The sword light whistled. The destructive aura was like a surging wave, instantly drowning her. What sword was this? It actually had such a terrifying, destructive aura. The noble lady was scared out of her wits and hastily retreated, but she was a step too late. Her chest was directly cut open by the sharp blade. Her robe was cut open, blood flowed out, and the spring scenery was also revealed. In his eyes, the two of them had to die, because the heaven-extinguishing sword had already been taken out, and everyone in the immortal world knew that Su Yun had obtained the heaven-extinguishing sword. If they did not die, then Su Yun's enemies would include the Seven Emotions Palace and the Spirit Rhino Mountain. Could this sword be the heaven-extinguishing sword? You are Su Yun? As expected, the noble lady recognized Su Yun and immediately shouted, "Lord Holy Maiden, let's go." The heaven-extinguishing sword can exterminate those who have become gods. We cannot make them our enemies. Retreat. Go? Do you think you can leave? Just then, the true devil sect leader suddenly scuttled over. With a palm strike, a gigantic black screen shot out from his palm, instantly enveloping the two of them. With a twist of his palm, the black screen continued to spin, and in the end, it turned into a palm-sized black bag that landed in his palm. Seeing that, Su Yun was startled. This guy had been watching the show the entire time, waiting until the critical moment to launch a sneak attack. He was truly shameless. However, he had subdued the two of them the moment he made a move, and Su Yun was afraid that his methods were not something that Su Yun could imagine. In the end, he was a great demon and was not someone that ordinary immortals and demons could compare to. However, when the immortal world attacked the true devil realm, why didn't he make a move? Was he really afraid of the immortal world's great immortals? Just how strong were the great immortals of the immortal world? How many were there? This place has been cleared by the Seven Emotions Fairies Flame Immortal Crane. No one is here, so I will take action and take these two people. I believe those great immortals won't notice. The true devil sect leader said. Why not just kill them? Su Yun asked. The graveyard of immortals and demons is not as safe as you think it is. Although I have some understanding of it, I have not been there for so many years. I don't know what has changed inside. Since Chi-Ching deity plans to enter the graveyard of immortals and demons, she must know everything about it. You can take her with you and let her guide you to find the demon saint. With that, the true devil sect leader threw the black bag to Su Yun. Su Yun nodded. He used his spirit power to connect to the bag and discovered that the noble lady and the Seven Emotions fairy who were trapped inside were at a loss of what to do. They were only paying attention to Su Yun, but had neglected this terrifying existence. Su Yun did not stand on ceremony and directly used the great exquisite technique on the Seven Emotions fairy through the bag. In that moment, all of the Seven Emotions fairy's memories were obtained by Su Yun, but at the same time, his expression became extremely ugly. What's wrong? The true devil sect leader sensed Su Yun's abnormality and asked, Bastard, this woman secretly sent a signal to the Seven Emotions Palace after I took out the heaven-exterminating sword. I'm afraid my identity has already been exposed. This is going to be troublesome. The true devil sect leader frowned. But don't worry, she doesn't know that you're a great demon. Su Yun placed the bag into the space bag and said, These two cannot die yet. Their lives are in my hands. The Seven Emotions Palace will not dare to act recklessly. Let's go save the demon saint first. We'll talk about it when we get back. All right. The two of them nodded and walked inside. However, not long after the two of them entered the immortal devil graveyard, a large group of immortals rushed over, and the person in the lead was young Master Lingxi, who had escaped not long ago. Chapter 1467. The deserted island had been eroded by the flames. Cheeching deity's terrifying flames had yet to dissipate. Without the power of creation, it was impossible to resist. Even God power was weak in front of it. It would be burned to ashes upon contact. Where did he go? Young masterling, she looked around. There was no one there. Su Yun was nowhere to be seen, nor was there the Seven Emotions Fairy. The Seven Emotions Fairy is the saintess of the Seven Emotions Palace. She is one of the candidates for the next Palace Master of the Seven Emotions Palace. It is not easy to kill her. Perhaps the person has already been killed by the saintess, and she has entered the graveyard of immortals and demons. A middle-aged man behind young masterlings, he said. Even so, but since you're already here, young master, if you want to enter the graveyard of immortals and demons to search for treasures, why don't we accompany you? The person behind him spoke again. Hearing this, young Master Linksy nodded. Very well. With all of you here, I feel much more at ease. Previously, the Seven Emotions Fairy invited me to the graveyard of immortals and demons, saying that many immortal demonic Bodhi have appeared there. It just so happens that I have a treasure that is extremely sensitive to primal chaos energy. With it, I can easily find the immortal demonic Bodhi. All of you are pillars of my Linksy mountain, and this immortal demonic Bodhi is also a rare treasure. Let us go together and obtain this opportunity. Immortal Fian Bodhi? The surrounding people all cried out in alarm. This immortal and demonic Bodhi is something that can only be born when a great immortal or a great demon of the ascended god realm dies in battle and evolve for at least 100,000 years. It is said that there are only two places in the universe where immortal and demonic Bodhi have appeared. One is the former demon city of the true demon realm, and the other is the battlefield of the great immortal and demon war. However, the immortal and demonic Bodhi in these two places were occupied by great immortals and great demons the moment they were born. Ordinary immortals and demons can't even touch them. A conservative estimate of an immortal and demonic Bodhi is at least a lower divine weapon. If the immortal and demonic Bodhi in the graveyard of the immortal and demon really exists, I'm afraid its grade is even higher than those two places. Young master, are you sure it's inside? The middle-aged man asked excitedly. The Seven Emotions Fairy said that she might appear. As for the specifics, we will only know when we go in. Then what are we waiting for? The Seven Emotions Fairy has already gone in. Let's go. The people of Spirit Rhino Mountain said impatiently. Young Master Linksy nodded and walked inside. The immortal Devil Bodhi was truly a good item, but Su Yin was not as interested in it as the demon saint. After all, he had spent so much effort to obtain the heaven-exterminating sword for the sake of saving the demon saint. If not, with just his encampment, he would not be able to deal with the primordial heavenly gods' council, much less protect the ominous sword. The two of them entered the graveyard. However, what surprised them was that there was no celestial energy or demonic energy in the graveyard. There was only cold and despairing resentment energy. The entire island was empty and the ground was cold. There were no remains to be seen. It was unknown if the corpses of those who died were still preserved. Su Yun and the true devil sect leader quietly walked forward. The resentment was extremely terrifying. The immortal's immortal chi was already unable to withstand it. At the very least, they needed the divine power to barely hold on. Luckily, Su Yun and the sect leader were protected by the power of creation, so they could still hold on. But as the two of them continued to walk deeper into the tomb, they felt that their power of creation was gradually becoming more and more strained. I started to look around from the outside. This immortal devil graveyard is not small. If I want to find Lord Devil Saint's body here, I'm afraid it won't be that easy. Sect leader, do you have any way to lock onto the location? Su Yun looked around and realized that his vision was not even a kilometer away, and the scenery outside was extremely illusory. This place was originally a spirit land, a place for the immortals to negotiate with my devil cultivator. But the immortals were despicable. They set up a formation and ambushed Senior Brother, causing a huge battle to break out here. The space was distorted, the attributes were reversed, and it has already turned into the Five Extremes land. There is no gold, no wood, No water, no fire, no earth, only resentment. The five extremes land is extremely dangerous. This place might cause space to collapse. We need to be careful. As for Senior Brother's location, it is the core of the formation. The location of the negotiation was the core of the formation. It is just that after all these years of changes, the great formation that was originally formed here has also discovered that there is a mismatch, and the core of the formation has also moved. Before entering, I specially observed the great formation, and initially determined that the core of the formation should be in the north. Let's carefully approach, the true devil sect leader said. Suyin nodded his head and headed north. The resentment grew stronger and stronger, but the two of them also walked faster and faster. But after a few steps, the true devil sect leader suddenly stopped. What's wrong? Suyin asked. The devil chi on my body is too heavy. Once I get close, I will definitely arouse the vigilance of the supreme expert guarding Senior Brother's corpse. This way, it will not be beneficial for us to move. The true devil sect leader said in a low voice. That was true. Although the true devil sect leader was a great demon, he could not be compared to the terrifying existence guarding the demon saint's corpse. Once he got close, Su Yun and him would instantly reveal their identities, and that would not be good. The two of them were unable to fight against that powerful existence head-on. Right now, they could only use their wits and not their strength. That existence still did not know that the two of them had arrived. So the two of them still had the initiative, but if they were to be exposed, they would be extremely passive. Su Yun, you can walk the rest of the way yourself. I will wait for you here. If you fight with that supreme expert, I will support you as fast as I can. The true devil sect leader said. All right, Su Yun nodded. The sect leader took out a pitch-black mirror and handed it over to Su Yun. This is the lifeless realm, one of the 10 great devil tools of the true devil realm. I obtained it by chance. Take it a deal with that supreme expert. Once this realm is activated, once it shines on the soul of any existence, it can be imprisoned. It is extremely powerful, unless it is a God-sealing realm existence. With that, the sect leader's imprint on the mirror was erased. Suyin took the mirror and nodded. Keep heading north. Senior Brother's corpse is still there, and the devil chi will not dissipate. When you sense the devil chi, follow the devil chi, and you will definitely be able to find Senior Brother. Suyin, be careful. You take care too. With that, Suyin turned and left. As he walked forward, Suyun's heart was also feeling uneasy. So suddenly, a sound of something tearing through the air sounded out. Suyun frowned. He took a step back and dodged, only to see a few bone spikes shooting out from the blurry scene in the distance. The bone spikes were wrapped in a terrifying aura of resentment. It was extremely terrifying. He looked over and saw a pale, white skeleton walking towards him. The skeleton was covered in a bright armor and held a long sword in its hand. The armor and sword were of a very high grade. Its empty eyes looked at Su Yun and suddenly released a sharp chi sound and then rushed over. Crash! Just then, the skeleton suddenly disappeared and directly appeared in front of Su Yun, the terrifying sword fiercely slashing towards Su Yun, causing Su Yun's scalp to go numb. The power attached to the sword was actually resentment, and also the power of creation. This skeleton even knew how to use the power of space. It must be the corpse of some supreme expert to be so terrifying. Su Yun anxiously pulled out the heaven-exterminating sword and slashed towards the big sword. With a clang sound, the skeleton was forced back. Su Yun took the opportunity to form a hand seal, using the power of creation to activate the limitless sword arts. A terrifying sword chi instantly appeared around the skeleton, wrapping around it and killing it. Crack! The skeleton instantly fell to the ground. Its body was chopped into smithereens, its resentment overflowing and dissipating into the air. Suyin walked over and picked up the skeleton's armor and greatsword. They were both pretty good treasures, and the treasures used by immortals of this level could not even compare to the Imperial battle robe. That wisp of resentment was shockingly pure. It was equivalent to a soul, but its thoughts were replaced by resentment. All it could do was crazily attack anything that it could attack. Suyin kept the two treasures and continued to walk forward. The scene in front of him was becoming more and more distorted, as though an extremely terrifying battle had erupted here. Even now, the distorted space was unable to recover. The road in front of Su Yun was only half a meter wide. If he accidentally touched the distorted space, his entire body would be sucked in and minced to death. He carefully walked forward. This road was at least 5 kilometers long. When he passed by without any mishaps, he immediately heard the sounds of fighting. Someone? Su Yun frowned and immediately approached carefully. There were many immortals in front of him. All of them were existences in the returning void, but none of them were at the early stage. The weakest were at the middle stage, and the God-sealed realm had also appeared, but there were only 3 of them, and their auras were not strong, so they should be like Su Yun, who had just stepped in. This is? Su Yun frowned. He was slightly startled. He did not recognize one of the groups of people. There were 5 of them, one old man for young-looking men and women. They were currently surrounded by another group of people, and this group of people not only had 2 God-sealed realms. There were even 9 of them. Their strength was overwhelming, but Su Yun could not be more familiar with the order badges hanging on the waists of these 9 people. The people from the eternal God realm. Su Yun looked over, and the people fighting over there also noticed him. It was best not to get involved in this kind of thing, but before Su Yun could walk away, a voice came out from the other side. "Senior brother, you came at the right time. Quick, come with us and kill these people from the eternal God realm." An anxious voice came out. Su Yun was startled. He looked over and saw a man with a gloomy face amongst the 5 people shouting at Su Yun. "Bastard!" Su Yun was unable to restrain his anger. They were clearly trying to drag him down with them. As expected, 2 people from the primordial heavenly gods council immediately rushed over. "Kill these people. Don't leave a single one alive." An explosive shout came out. "Stop! I don't even know them." Su Yun hurriedly retreated, shouting. He was not afraid of these people. He just did not want to be used. "Senior brother, what happened just now was my fault. Don't be angry. Now that these people from the eternal God realm want to exterminate us, you should let go of your grudges and join hands to fight against the enemy. In a while, Junior brother will pour tea for you and apologize." The sinister vulture man spoke again. Su Yun's anger soared to the heavens. But the people from the eternal God realm were already rushing over, not giving him a chance to explain. Chapter 1468. Bang! Su Yun's fist smashed towards the person who was the first to rush over. The terrifying fist force carried the power of creation and directly smashed onto the person's chest, causing his body to immediately fly backwards. His chest was split into pieces, and his divine power leaked out. He was in an extremely miserable state. Power of creation? The other person's expression changed drastically as he turned to flee. "You guessed right," Su Yun said coldly, and then reached out into the air, grabbing the fleeing person back and punching him in the head. "I said that I don't know these people, but since you guys are so overbearing, don't blame me for being ruthless." With the suppression of his strength, his fist smashed forward. That person had no way to retaliate, and his head was directly smashed to pieces. An existence of the ruins had fallen just like that. The power of creation was not something they could contend against. The qualitative change in strength brought about a power that was impossible to measure, much less compare. This person must be an existence of the God realm. Amongst the people from the eternal God realm, a white-haired old man directly rushed over, and a terrifying power of creation swept towards Su Yun. "You deal with the people from Jade Sky Sea. Leave this person to me." "All right." A shout rang out, and the old man had already rushed over. His power of creation was extremely ferocious. Before it even arrived, the pressure had already shattered the ground. Su Yun frowned and dodged. This old man was also a God realm expert, so it was not wise to fight him head-on. If he were to suffer any injuries from his hands, then it would be difficult to deal with the situation later on. He pondered for a moment, then suddenly retreated and walked towards the distorted path of space. "Where do you think you're going?" The old man shouted and chased after him. The terrifying power of creation crazily attacked him. Su Yun still did not fight, and continued to retreat. The two of them entered the distorted space path and slowed down their movements. Neither of them dared to act recklessly. If they were to accidentally fall into the distorted space, even the God realm would not be able to bear the consequences. Do you only know how to run? Seeing that Su Yun was still not fighting and was running with all his might, the old man frowned, but he did not give up. If he did not take care of this enemy, when they attacked the people from Jade Sky Sea, this person would suddenly launch a sneak attack, and that would not be good. Therefore, he had to kill this person and not let him speak of what happened here. Escape? Do you really think I'm running away? Su Yun suddenly stopped and stood in front of the void road. The old man frowned. He had a bad feeling about this, but how could he retreat at this time? He slapped forward with one hand, and the power of creation surged out from his palm, bringing with it a supreme power. It shot towards Su Yun at lightning speed. The narrow path was immediately drowned by the power of creation. There was nowhere to hide. However, just as the terrifying power was about to approach Su Yun, it suddenly tore itself apart and then disappeared without a trace. A sword appeared in Su Yun's hand. The sword's destructive aura was extremely dense. The cold sword trembled violently, filled with killing intent. The whistling sword intent struck straight at people's hearts. The old man's expression changed drastically. Die! Su Yun snorted. He leaped up, and the heaven-exterminating sword slashed at his head. Grand sealing art. The old man knew that the sword in Su Yun's hand was not simple. Adding his terrifying cultivation, if he wanted to kill him, he had to use his full strength. A ray of grayish-white light shot out from the old man's body, like a spider web. It wrapped around Su Yun's body, causing his attack to instantly disintegrate. The surging power of creation surged out from the old man's body like a flood, maintaining the terrifying sealing technique. My grand sealing art is a divine ability. Not only can it seal your body, it can also seal your soul. You are already a dead man. The old man panted as he roared. This technique consumed a lot of his energy, but to be able to get rid of this person, everything was worth it. Crash! Suddenly, a pitch-black thing that looked like an evil spirit appeared behind the old man and directly pounced towards Su Yun's neck to bite. The terrifying steel teeth were about to bite his neck off. It was a mechanical puppet. Furthermore, it was a terrifying puppet made from the power of creation. There was even soul force inside, and it was likely that the souls of many immortals were sealed inside to act as a power source. Seeing that the mechanical puppet had successfully bitten Su Yun's neck, the old man laughed out loud. Die. You're thinking too much. Su Yun snorted. The sword in his hand suddenly flew out, fiercely slashing towards the puppet. Crack! The puppet immediately shattered, and the vengeful spirit leaked out, wailing as it floated in all directions. What? The old man was stunned. The sword suddenly started to spin. The sword might and sword force burst forth at the same time. The old man was no match for it. The aura around his body was suppressed. He was directly thrown down, and the grand sealing art that bound Su Yun was also released. Su Yun leaped down, raised his sword, and slashed. Before the old man could even stand up, his head was chopped off by the heaven-extinguishing sword. His chi was suppressed by the sword force and sword might. He could not retaliate, adding that he did not expect Su Yun to be able to move on his own after being suppressed. Although he did not look down on Su Yun, he had underestimated the power of the sword, and dying under the sword was only natural. The old man's soul leaked out. Su Yun immediately captured it, took out a porcelain bottle from the space bag, and sealed it inside. The soul of an existence in the God-sealing realm was extremely precious. Regardless of whether it was refining pills or forging, it was a priceless treasure, and if it was used for cultivation, it could provide a cultivator with great enlightenment. Su Yun took off the space bag from the old man's waist, hung it on his body, and walked forward. With one less God-sealing realm expert and one less origin deity realm expert, Yao Tianhai's side should be much more relaxed. When Su Yun walked over, the two sides were still fighting fiercely. In that short period of time, Yao Tianhai had sacrificed one person, while the Eternal God Realm had suffered some injuries, so it was not much of a problem. Seeing Su Yun coming over, the faces of the people from the eternal god realm all changed. Su Yun's arrival meant that the god-sealing realm existence that was sent earlier had died. Even the god-sealing realm could not subdue this person. What kind of methods did this person have? Let's go. How could the people from the eternal god realm dare to stay for long? They immediately turned and retreated. If Su Yun was on Yao Tianhai's side, then with two god-sealing realm experts, they had no chance of destroying the other party. Go. You think you can leave? A person from Yao Tianhai looked at the eternal god realm angrily and was about to chase after them. However, he was stopped by the old man. No need to chase. Let them go. Everyone stopped. The people from the eternal god realm ran very quickly, and Su Yun did not chase after them. But at this moment, his eyes were fixed on one of the people from Yao Tianhai. It was the sinister man who had dragged him into the water. Everyone from Yao Tianhai was injured, and the god-sealing realm existence was not feeling well either. He had been hit by the opponent's power of creation and could not be dispelled in a short period of time. Although this battle did not last long, it was extremely intense. Both sides wanted to end the battle quickly, so they used all kinds of special treasures. Seeing Su Yun walk over with ill intent in his eyes, the old man's brows twitched, but he still stood up and cupped his fists toward Su Yun. Thank you for your help. Yao Tianhai is extremely grateful. All of them felt the killing intent from Su Yun's body and looked at him vigilantly. However, Su Yun acted as if he did not hear the old man's words and turned his head to stare at the person who spoke just now and said solemnly, "Get out here. You, what are you going to do?" That person was a little weak. In fact, when he saw Su Yun coming over, he did not expect Su Yun's strength. He only thought that he was an origin realm expert and wanted to use him to reduce the pressure on them. It didn't matter if he offended him, but he did not expect that he was actually a god-sealing realm expert. That situation was not ordinary. Since you framed me, then you should be prepared to bear the consequences, Su Yun said coldly. Seeing that, the old man's brows twitched. He walked in front of Su Yun and cupped his fists. Immortal friend, he Mao was just speaking in a moment of desperation. I have offended you. Please forgive me. Can you give this old man some face and let this matter go? Who are you? Su Yun stared at the old man and asked. I am Yao Tianhai's chief elder, Hai Huang. The old man said. I've never heard of you. Why should I give you face? Su Yun pulled out the heaven-extinguishing sword and walked towards Mao. You, what are you doing? We are from Yao Tianhai. If you touch me, the people from Yao Tianhai will not let you off. Mao was shocked and panicked as he retreated. The old man's expression also turned ugly. As a sect elder, he naturally would not allow Su Yun to kill a sect disciple. He immediately rushed over and used his aura to force Su Yun to retreat. Immortal friend, you saw the situation just now. We were forced into a corner. Although Mao's actions were inappropriate, if you want to take his life, it seems to be going too far, right? If you think that you have suffered any losses, then I will compensate you. Why must you be so overbearing? Overbearing? Compensation? Su Yun snorted coldly. If I was only at the origin deity realm, his words just now would have killed me long ago. At that time, what will you compensate me with? If you really think that you are an elder, then you should do what an elder should do. When he framed me, you should have stopped him, but you didn't. Instead, you acquiesced. Just based on this, I don't have to give you face. Since he wants to harm my life, why should I spare him? You better get out of the way. Otherwise, whoever stops me will die. Sir, are you determined to go against our Yao Tianhai? The old man was also a little angry. You own me, and you speak as if I've let you down? Su Yun said coldly. Then his body moved and instantly rushed towards Mao. The old man's face changed. He immediately activated the power of creation to stop him. But just as his power of creation was produced, he was forced back by a terrifying sword might. The old man's chest heaved. He was already injured. How could he be Su Yun's match? Mao screamed. He wanted to escape, but there was nowhere to run. Elder, save me. Senior brother and sister, save me. Mao shouted in panic, but to no avail. Even Hai Huang could not stop Su Yun. How could they dare to make a move? But with a flash of cold light, The heaven-extinguishing sword struck out. Mao's body instantly exploded, his soul dissipated, and he died. Everyone's faces turned pale. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.